Madam Clerk, are we ready?
We are.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the April 29th meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission. At this time, we're going to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Neil Majardin.
Present.
Ed Lawson. Here. Bob Lucy.
Here.
Oscar Delgado.
Here.
Von Hartung.
Here.
Darren Tedford. Bill Thomas.
Here.
Adam Spear.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, we were going to move into the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would love, we have a new senior planner, Graham Dollarhide. First off, fabulous name. If you wouldn't, please lead us in the pledge. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. At this time, we'll move into public comment. First public comment, Tom Daly.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. For the record, Tom Daly from the Estates at Mount Rose on Mount Rose Highway. And as a matter of full disclosure, a candidate for Assembly District 26 on the Republican primary. We have had on Mount Rose Highway 7 fatalities in 6 years, 3 of which at the intersection of Callahan Road, which is my community. I transit that intersection twice a day. Last Saturday, I witnessed a head-on collision at the intersection of Thomas Creek and Mount Rose Highway. Car destroyed, pickup truck damaged, 2 people injured, fortunately no one killed. That accident was a direct result of the removal of the advanced warning signal for westbound Mount Rose Highway traffic and the change in timing of the traffic signal to a much shorter 4 seconds. The speed limit is 55 miles an hour. By profession, I am a board-certified safety professional with a master's degree in safety from the University of Southern California. I can tell you in my opinion, my expert opinion, that these changes present a clear and present danger to motorists on this highway. We have been promised for 3 years a safety improvement program. There have been meetings, reports, studies, talk, but no action. Not a single contract has been let, not a single spade of dirt has been turned. How many more people have to die before you take any action, or NDOT takes any action? These are county roads intersecting a state highway, so there's plenty of responsibility to go around. Don't worry, we have a solution for this problem, and the solution is coming on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, Kelly Hyatt.
Hello, my name is Kelly Hyatt, and I just want to apologize, first of all, that I am talking about something that does not have to do with your agenda items, but I thought it was going to. So I live in Villa Bianca Mobile Home Estates on Toll Road in Geiger, and recently there was this report circulating about how there was going to be a road that would go through our trailer park, Mobile Home Estates, where we own our land, and it would decimate our property. So everyone was upset. I was upset. We all got sent in comments and things like that. And so I'm just very concerned that no one knew about this. No, we went to my homeowners association, all my neighbors, the businesses in the area, the nursery. No one knew anything about it. So why don't we know about these things? And I would like to say, for the record, I'm definitely against anything like that. All they want to do is connect Toll Road to 395. To take pressure off of the Mount Rose corner, which I understand, especially I'm very sorry about what just happened. It happens all the time, but it's silly progress, silly road. And I understand now that it is not even on the record or on the radar. You're not even looking at it now, but that does not mean that you won't, because if you can conceptualize it, you can do it. And it doesn't have anything to do with any of us, and it just happens. When the yellow signs come out for public comment, it's done. However, you could put a wild horse overpass on that road on Geiger grade, because that would be very helpful for our community, and it would protect and save lives. Thank you for your time, and again, I apologize for being off the subject.
Thank you very much. Dora Martinez. Good morning, Dora.
Oh, good morning, Madam Chair and the rest of the commissioners. My name is Dora Martinez, representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. I was going to bring a lot of my coalition members here, but they are scared to show their faces. Sometimes when they do speak, because they're to their access services, to some of the schedulers, they feel like they've been retaliated against, because the very next day or the day after that or during the rest of the week, their trips are very delayed and they can't make it to their dialysis, grocery shopping. So on behalf of my group, we just want you to be aware, since it's been heard from this commission and a lot of people who are elected officials saying we vulnerable population, we need to be more vigilant and diligent with their service. Well, we don't feel that. I know it's been said that nobody wants to work. There's no bus drivers. I just heard that there's like 3 or 4 bus drivers that quit paratransit access. And due to the fact that, you earned less than $10 to take care, to have a lot of responsibilities. So I would really support high paying for our drivers. I know that MTM subcontract to Uber.
Stop it.
Sorry. Here's the thing with Uber and Lyft. And I know you guys are all aware of this, and if you don't, here it goes. They are not well-trained to deal with ADA clients. We are certified. We have to go through a process to become a paratransit eligible. Uber don't know how to guide a visually impaired person. They greet my dog. They don't greet me. They don't help a person who's using a walker to the door. They just okay, here you go. They don't help them. And then there's no accountability. There's no videos. I know that paratransit buses and all the RTC, right? They have videos, camera. So, there's a real concern to us because some of our members are developmentally disabled. They fall in the IDD. So that's liability right there. So please, we encourage high-paying job for our drivers because we know them. Some of them are really awesome. They've been there for 10 years. We know them by their voice, just like Mr. Bob Lucy. Now I know his voice, and Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor. So I really encourage you all to please increase our drivers' pay. One more. One of the videos for RTC, and I don't know who to address this to, and I think it's Mark Maloney, who's a designated ADA. It's not accessible. Audio description is lacking there, and we want to be included in your, survey. I did the survey, and I went to the bottom, and I submitted my email or my phone number, and it only says 7-day pass. Well, what about people who are taking paratransit that does that survey? And they cannot take RTC ride. Can they have a 10 ride pass as well too? I mean, just even things out for everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dora. Madam Clerk, I think that is the end of general public comment.
Correct. We have no additional.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if
Commissioner Lucy.
you'll indulge me, I'd like to respond to a couple things as an individual, not as a commissioner of this board, but as through public comment as well. I too am concerned with the safety improvements on Melrose Highway. Mr. Daly brings forth as an individual a number of concerns that NDOT did not approach us, nor did they give us adequate time in regards to the removal of the AWS. I know specifically of that instance you spoke of that accident at Thomas Creek and Mount Rose Highway. Those yellows are not adequate enough for the speeds that are being traveled. And I've said this multiple times, the grade on that section of road between Wedge Parkway and Thomas Creek Road is exactly 5%, 4 to 5%, depending on where you are within that grade. And at points of the evening, at 4 to 5 p.m., when the sun is setting, the sun is directly in an individual's eyes. You cannot see those yellows in a timely manner. And it is impactful. And it is dangerous. And those AWSs that, whether they were sent by some national standard, do not meet the geographical and topographical areas that we speak of when we talk about this is not Houston and flat. This is a very mountainous area that has hills and undulations that make it very difficult for drivers at all times of the day to adequately. And it is a two-line highway that shifts from 50 miles an hour to 55, going up that mountain with commercial traffic and in multiple intersections that need to be maneuvered. And unfortunately, RTC can't always participate in those arterials, but the county has looked at it multiple times with no response from NDOT in regards to other than potentially putting in roundabouts 3 years down the road and those safety issues. And when you look at the discussions, NDOT's always talking about, the Vision Zero projects and safety first, and we're not addressing that. And it concerns me as a citizen because not only as an experienced driver of over 20 years or 25 years, my issues are for those drivers that are 16 years of age and over that are traveling to Galena High School, or the parents that are taking their kids to Durrell School or Hunsberg Elementary or any of the schools along that corridor, and they don't adequately address it. And I'm just hoping that we can continue to do something, because to Mr. Daly's discussion, for 3 years, more than that, 6 years, we've been discussing safety issues and nothing has yet to be addressed on that corridor. And there's no shovels in the dirt, and we've come with them with multiple solutions, and I'd like to see something done. As a citizen and as a resident of that area, it is extremely dangerous, and taking those AWS out is only made it worse. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lucy, and hopefully NDOT will have something to say on this when we get to the NDOT report, so thank you very much. At this time, we don't have any further general public comment. We're going to move into the approval of the agenda. Director Thomas, do we have any items to modify?
Madam Chair, we do not.
Okay, looking for a motion. So moved. I have a motion. Second. And a second. All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously. Do any members have any items they wish to pull for discussion? Okay, hearing none. We do have public comment on item 4.11. We did have a written correspondence. I don't know if Mr. Kai Plaskin is here.
No, he had to leave.
Okay, so we do have a written, which we will get to all the members, or am I to read it? What am I supposed to do?
He asked if you would read it. It's your choice.
We'll get a copy and we'll just get it. Written correspondence just gets to everybody.
Okay.
Okay, let me make sure we have no other further public comment. Madam Clerk, on the consent items?
We do not.
Okay, may I get a motion?
Again, so moved.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, we're on item 5.1. We do have public comment on this item. Gary Watson.
Thank you. Good morning. Gary Watson, President of Teamsters Local 533, for the record. Mr. Thomas should be treated no differently than our 200 transit workers. Mr. Thomas should know how it feels to stand on a corner with a sign fighting for his livelihood. Because of his actions and inactions, our members had to endure economic hardships for 60 days. To say Mr. Thomas was untruthful in his statements regarding the labor dispute would be an understatement. Misleading the media, the public, and the transit workers should not be a characteristic of the executive director of the RTC. And that should not go unnoticed by this board. This board should evaluate its principles and its future direction. Instead of deploying a pay increase, you should demand Mr. Thomas's resignation. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have any further public comment?
No, we do not.
All right. Thank you very much. At this time, we will move on to discussion items and presentations, review and evaluation of Executive Director Bill Thomas. All on you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. There's actually two items here. According to my agreement with the board for my employment annually, we need to do an evaluation. Circumstances warranted the delay from fiscal year 21, so we're going to do both 21 and 22 today, but I just want to make sure the board knows that there are two different evaluation periods. First, I'd like to, after my 2 years, the opportunity that you've given me, I wanted to thank you for the 2 years of learning more about RTC and the quality of people that work for RTC and the leadership of this board, and I do appreciate your trust and support in the successes that we've accomplished in the past 2 years, which I'm going to be talking about. I also, equally as importantly, want to thank the employees of RTC because they're the ones that actually produce the outcomes that make a difference in our community, and I think to not acknowledge them would be a disservice. The accomplishments and the organizational success of RTC is really not an individual accomplishment, but one of a well-functioning team. And I believe from the standpoint of what my desire is and what you're looking for from me, that team leadership is really paramount. In a well-functioning team, it's not only me as the executive director, but it's also you as the stewards of the public and the leaders of policy, but also, as I mentioned, the RTC employees who actually execute the important work we do for the community. In your packet, I have provided you with a very detailed overview of all of the goals and objectives for the past 2 years that we've set collectively and how we've performed on those. But I did want to take the opportunity this morning to talk about a few of the highlights, and so that's what I'm going to do right now. And certainly when I'm done, I would love to hear from the board in terms of your opinions and directions, in particularly in moving forward. So starting again with fiscal year 2021, one of the things that I represented to you and one that we accomplished is really making accountability real. And what I mean by that is our success can only be verified if we have measurable outcomes and measurable goals in terms of where we're trying to go. So what we did is we worked to define some key indicators of our performance. And those indicators are always, it's a dynamic process, it's not static. We're always looking for better ways to demonstrate our performance to you as the leaders of this organization, to the community, as the people who we serve, and then also to ourselves. Because these indicators, which are publicly displayed on our website, are a way for everybody to know what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we will continue to refine and perfect those. One of the things that when I first came on was an objective of the board, but particularly at that time, Chairman Lucy was to look at how we did our legal services. And what we did is, in a simple sense, we moved the service in-house. Adam took over overseeing it, and the direct result of Adam's leadership and efforts in this strategy was we saved a significant amount of money in the legal world, more than $1 million year over year, by changing this process, and I appreciate Adam's leadership in leading this effort. In addition, as you know, and I'll talk about, we do a lot in terms of grants, and I would say we're a community leader in terms of our ability to obtain and perfect on grants, particularly from the federal government. We've moved to a different approach here, which is really to create, well, first of all, look at these mini grants that come out and make sure that when we go after them, they're ones that really meet our core principles and purpose. So we're not just chasing grants because the money's there, but we're doing it because it really can make a difference for what we're trying to do as RTC. And we changed our approach a little bit where we now design teams around each grant. So once we decide it's a grant that has value to RTC, we create a team, and that team then pulls together the application and follows through with its implementation. As far as agency-wide achievements for fiscal year 21, a couple of the highlights. Oops, whoa.
It's catching up. It's just it's a little slow.
Yeah, I think I probably has to bounce off a satellite before it comes down and. Okay. And some of these, of course, we've talked about frequently, but they deserve to be talked about many times because they are so significant. So first, during 21, and just to put it in the context, which I probably don't need to remind you, but I need to say is, you know, we're talking about a period where we were in the middle of a pandemic, and it changed all of our worlds and everything we do, but we were able to, in great part because of the success of the team that led this, as well as the community's acceptance, we were able to complete the Virginia Street Rapid Transit Project, which is transformative. It is the biggest and probably most impactful transit project we've done in the community ever. And not only did we get it done, but it was done 17 months early and $26 million under budget. So as an agency that is accountable to the public, I would say we've exceeded the two most important measures, which is getting the project in place because the community needs it, and also doing it in a way where we didn't spend all of their hard-earned money, but also brought it in under budget. So that one can't be celebrated enough, in my opinion. During the pandemic, we also completed what is our most important planning document, which is the Regional Transportation Plan. And that document, as you all know, is a very community and labor-intensive document, but we were able to get it done on time, and I believe the document very well reflects both the community and the board and our regional partners, I should say, view for the future. So that was a major accomplishment during the throes of the initial impact of the pandemic. Also, the Flexrite Expansion program, we had, prior to fiscal year 21, a service in a smaller portion of Sparks, but through the board's direction and request, we implemented 2 new Flexrite areas, one which was a large expansion to the Sparks area, and then one over in Verdi Mogul. As you can see from this, the Sparks one was very, very successful, and the Somerset Verdi one initially had some challenges. We're going to be talking under our TOPS presentation today about how we use that experience and knowledge to perfect that particular flex ride zone, but I would say that those were a very important decision and leadership by you to implement a tool that we're finding to be very successful in meeting the needs of the community. Getting back to the grant process, this year was a very successful year for us. We got $23 million for Pyramid Highway as a result of the staff submitting of a build grant to the Federal Highway Administration. We also got a smaller grant, but important grant to implement a transformative process where we actually have on the buses a viewing of the assets to capture and let us know when we do need to do some maintenance, saving time and money. And then lastly, a little more than $4 million, which allowed us to purchase buses, electric hybrid buses, I believe 7 buses. So a significant impact in terms of our transportation.
Can we go back to that,
Sure.
that slide? I just want to point out that that's exactly what Pyramid Highway looked at 9:20 this morning. I'm not joking. Same level of traffic, both directions. Thank you.
Moving now to fiscal year 2022, we know that eventually we're going to need to replace the Villanova facility. So we started at your direction exploring how to do that. And what we came up with was a conceptual plan at our Sutro location to expand and redo that facility. And we did just recently turn in an application for a community, trying to get this is a new federal acronym, community, well, let me just say it this way. They used to be called earmarks. I think it's a community funding choice or something like that. But we did turn an application for that, and I think. There it is. Okay. Congressionally directed funds, okay. So we did turn that application in, and I think we have a promising opportunity here to do the groundwork to design and move this to its first stage to get it well ahead of ultimately the issue of replacing Villanova, and we want to be ahead of that and not be reactionary to when we get to that point. In addition, you asked and we implemented the disposal of some of our property. This is a program that's ongoing. We were able to take 3 properties, sell them to private owners, and get them back on the tax rolls. So taking idle property that were a maintenance burden to us and turning them into something that can be used to meet the community's need, as well as revenue sources to pay for the services that are provided. Again, focusing on our federal effort, I think you made it pretty clear we wanted a positive relationship, and we do consistently and I think very positively interact with the federal delegation staff frequently. We've been very successful with competitive grants and have received from FDA the initial approval to repurpose some of the BRT, Virginia Street BRT funds that I mentioned earlier. As far as agency achievements for fiscal year 22, we have a lot of projects we did, but I just wanted to highlight a couple. One of them is Lemon Drive, which is, I'm sure all of you know, very significant. It's one we've done in partnership with NDOT. This project is on schedule, and we're hoping that it will be open to the public and completed in July of this year. So we're looking at a $24 million project that's very impactful in the North Valley's being completed within a year, which I would say, again, is on schedule and on budget, something we're very proud of. We also started the first year of work on the Audie Wells corridor. As you all know, that's a very significant, impactful project that took quite a while to get to the point where we got it out to bid. But the staff was very successful in getting out to bid, and we got a bid that was in line with the revenues we had set aside. So this impactful project's on its way, and we will, of course, be reporting to you, but another grand success, I think, for our organization. And then another one that I'm really proud of is we had a goal as an agency to get to alternative fuels. We're 13 years ahead of that. And we will accomplish, if we haven't yet, we will in the very near future, like probably days or weeks, be 100% alternative fuel. And that's something that I think, we certainly are very proud of, and we hope the board is and the community, that we're not only a leader in our community, but nationally. We were well ahead of the curve on electric vehicles, and now we're at 100%. So this is something we're going to be celebrating soon. In addition, we've completed the installation of chargers at 4th Street Station and Centennial Plaza that allow us to assure that our new electric vehicles can actually be used in a way that allow us to be reliable and predictable in the service to our customers. Touching specifically on grants we received in 22, we got $7 million for the Arlington Bridges project through a RAISE grant, and then we got another $2 million from congressionally directed funds. Next meeting, I'll have that down. Which again is, within 2-year period, I think it shows success in being able to meet the needs of the federal government and our delegation's desire to help us in our community. We also got $6.5 million grant to implement a hydrogen fuel cell bus program, pilot project. And then the third one I want to touch on is we did get through a competitive grant program, $300,000 from the Federal Transit Administration to explore the extension of our bus rapid transit, potentially down to Summit Sierra, and really help us work with local governments in terms of how we facilitate a development pattern that supports public transit. And then I want to touch on the van pool program for 2 reasons. One of them is this has been an off-the-rails success, and just by way of example, we are 6th in the nation in terms of our use, and that means our frequency and our passengers that use these van pools, we're 6th in the country, just below places such as San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego. So in a national scale, as a city of, or a community of less than 500,000, we're performing to the level of very large urban communities. So that's another one that I think we should all be very proud of. Particularly that this program was up and going and is very well functioning and is probably the best source of helping people today with the increase in fuel tax, because it's an ability for shared riding. It's really a tool to get ride sharing to be effectively done. And I would say the fact that we've grown almost doubling the number of vehicles that are out there is a direct reflection on the value to the community and the individual's desire to participate in rideshare. So I want to close by talking about vision, and in June, we'll be back to the board with specific goals, which will be the measurable things to look at the year going forward. But I just wanted to talk philosophically about my vision as your executive director and things that I think we will be focusing on. First is, as we all know, technology is changing so fast and in so many ways that we really want to keep focused on how we use the evolving technology to, in a way that is not noise, but effective in measuring what our constituents or what the public needs. And what I mean by that is, how can we use these tools so we can get to what are the experiences of the drivers on the road or the people riding the buses. And so that's one of our goals, is really perfect that use of technology. The second one is to focus on our system as a network rather than individual elements. And the reason I say that is sometimes we can get lost on a particular project or a particular thing and forget how that thing does or doesn't benefit the network. And it's my fundamental belief that at the end of the day, the public really cares about their experience on the whole network. And so we need to really stay focused or refocus on the network effects of all the great things we do. I want to fine tune our financial planning to see if we can get more outcomes per dollar of input. And the reason that becomes critically important, as we're all aware, in the times of labor shortages and supply shortages and price increases and inflation, it's going to be a challenge to be able to get all the things we need to get done with the resources that we have, which may not keep up with that. And then the final 2 things, one is to continue to improve our partnership with NDOT, RTC Southern Nevada, and the MPOs. In addition, I would add to that also the local governments as a major goal of mine, is to make sure that we're partnering and not conflicting, and really in this time of challenge, working as partners to get the best outcome for the public by looking to each other and with each other to make sure we're working together. And then the housing transit linkage. In our community, I think we all know housing is a critical thing. Transit certainly is a tool that can help, not only in terms of moving people around, but also when you're looking at rents and rent increases, and how rent increases directly affect the ability for the public to afford what they need to in life. To the extent we can be successful working with local governments to provide more housing along our transit routes, that's an opportunity for people to have more money to pay for medicine or other things they need, because they're not paying for auto insurance and fuel and all those other things. So thank you for your trust and your patience to go through all this, but I did want to use this opportunity to highlight some of these critical things. So I will end my presentation and patiently listen to what you may have to say.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation and the information, and at this time, we'll open it up to commissioners for questions and comments. We'll just kick it off here. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Director Thomas, I want to thank staff, and it was some previous staff, actually, that went and got the $23 million for that section of Pyramid Highway to solve that. And so I'm eternally grateful, and I think that we'll ultimately see how much smoother that section of road will operate once that project is done. I'm only just a little disappointed because I was hoping that it would have started last year, but the sooner the better. You made mention of a couple of different things here, housing along transit. So I'm going to take you back 35 years when my wife and I bought our house in Spanish Springs, and we could not afford to live in a place that was close to our place of employment. Even then, this was 1986, and we moved in February of 1987. That said, we were forced, literally, because of our economic situation, to buy a house that was further out. And what I would submit to this board is that instead of trying to figure out how we build housing in transit, how do we get housing to transit to the housing that exists? Because you've got a lot of people moving out in Cold Springs. You've got people moving out in the outer areas because it's more affordable. And so I know we've got the next item that's coming, but I think that's where maybe fixed routes aren't going to work quite so well, but Flexrite could potentially work very well to offset that real need. There's still not a robust system of transit out in Spanish Springs. Whether it's incorporated or unincorporated, it doesn't matter. It's much needed. And then when you get out to the North Valleys, you've still got, out in Cold Springs and et cetera. Those houses are more affordable, but there's not a robust system to get people where they need to be, and so they're forced to have automobiles, which exacerbates the problem on all of our roads. So I look forward to having more conversations. I think, there was a lot in there. This is a dynamic situation. It's constantly changing. You inherited a lot of stuff, and so I generally think that you have done a really good job trying to balance it, given COVID and the growth in the region, in fact, the explosive growth in the region. So I look forward to trying to figure out how we approach some of these problems and some of these issues in a more dynamic way. Because maybe, just maybe, the way that we've thought about it historically isn't the way we should think about it as far as future solutions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mayor Lawson.
Thank you. Bill, I'm interested in the technology part of that. Do you set aside a budget for that? Do you have a plan of how we're going to use technology? One of the things we did in Sparks was we dedicated a budget, and it sounds funny, but we took our marijuana money and we call it grass for grass. So $1 million goes to Golden Eagle, and then whatever's left over goes to technology, which is generally around $800,000, $900,000 a year. We were uniquely set up at the time when the COVID hit to be able to push our people into working from home within roughly 30 days. So looking in the future, do we have something like that for planning? How do we use technology? I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm not an expert on this subject, but I'm just curious, is there a plan for the future?
Short answer is yes, and we will be detailing some of that when we bring the budget back in May.
Okay, Commissioner Lucy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Thomas, I want to say you have stepped into this role that was left by one of my mentors, Mr. Gibson, and he at the time, came from a long line of transportation background, and those were big shoes to fill. And I believe you stepped in not only into a very difficult role that was led by somebody who had 20 years of experience in transportation, but you stepped into a time when it was right post-pandemic, during the pandemic for the most part, and trying to accommodate many of the challenges, as you had pointed out, that were left for you. And I think you've done a phenomenal job in regards to making some of those transitions effective and functional based upon the direction of this board and creating change within the organization. Now, creating change in any organization is difficult at best and comes with its own challenges of having to work to meld the culture within that organization. And I think you have done a very good job. We've had, through natural attrition, individuals retire, new individuals come up through the program, and you've found a very functional role for everybody to really grow within the organization. So I applaud you for that. And not only have you done that, but you've taken some of the disjointed and siloed efforts within the RTC and consolidated them into a more efficient process. And that in itself can be challenging outside of all the everyday tasks, from planning to focusing on transit to road construction to you name it, in regards to what RTC does. And I've said this for many years, is that our RTC, Washoe RTC, is very different than other RTCs or MPOs across the country, because not only do we deal with mass transit and the community, but we also deal with planning and building roads, which is very, very unlike many transit organizations across the country. And people need to understand that. As a multifaceted, very well-funded organization, it takes a lot of different skill sets to manage a transit organization as such, where you will go to major urban areas where all the executive director or the organization will do is just transit. MARTA, Houston, BART, they don't build roads. Those are built by the state or the communities. However, in Washoe County, we build the roads. We build the arterials and the collectors. And to me, that you have not only realized those challenges, but overcome those challenges, understand them, and are continuing to grow and evolve within those areas. And I want to applaud you for that. I still believe, to Commissioner Hartung's point, transit is it is the nexus, it is the beginning of all planning. If you can't get there, you can't work there, you can't live there, you can't buy any type of commercial or retail product from there, you can't provide services there. Transit should always be the basis MPO for every area. And I think we've done that. I think we've done a great job of not only building and working with TMRPA and our local other municipalities, but really truly being at the forefront of those discussions. And I'd like to see that continue to be and evolve. Director Gibson and I, for a number of years, had that discussion about what RTC being the lead the MPO for the region. That has never been well received, but I still will sit and lead with that discussion, because I think it is important that transit sets that initial stage for individuals, because to Commissioner Hartung's point, if you don't plan properly and plan your roads, you find yourselves in challenging areas for 1, safety, 2, expansion, and 3, growth. For right-of-ways, making sure you can anticipate, and we're very much different than a flat Dallas-type area where you could build a grid system. We have geographical challenges here in northern Nevada that make it very difficult, which is more of a reason why transit should be the leading, or where can we build a road so that we can focus on planning. And so that is really one of the things that I think you've done very well. And I think you've carried a lot of the past initiatives forward and made them more innovative and brought those ideas forward and really carve them into how they're going to best suit us going into the future. So those are my comments, Madam Chair. I think Mr. Thomas has done, Director Thomas has done a wonderful job. I think he continues to evolve. He's by no means hit his maximum stride, but if he's not growing, then you're dying, and I think he's constantly growing. So I think I want to applaud him on that. One thing I would be critical about is I think that we need to continue to be more, one thing that we were more constantly involved with was communications with our federal delegation in regards to the grant process. We will be losing our CFO to retirement, Ms. Haddock, and she's not here today, but at the end of May, and we need to be focused on going to get those grants in Washington, D.C. That was one thing that we were very, very good at, and continuing to maintain those relationships, not only with the Department of Transportation, but with APTA and the Highway Association, and making sure that we were always at the forefront. And we've always been looked at as a leader within our community for those transit solutions and road. I don't think we have been as, through the pandemic, that obviously put a halt on that, but I'd like to see that program or those initiatives become more prominent as we continue on into the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Delgado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along those lines, I also express the same sentiments as my colleagues. Bill, but overall, good job. I mean, I can't think of one organization across our nation that hasn't struggled during these last 2 years. To begin to see that we also at the forefront have always kept community-minded up front has meant a lot to me. To know that no matter what, we've had to continue to keep rolling, provide access and an opportunity for many of our individuals to get to work, and also an opportunity to continue to hear from them in terms of rider improvement has meant a lot to me, especially as we looked at the next item that would be for us on 5.2. But I think it's always hard to follow someone's footsteps, but it's always an opportunity to express new ideas along those lines. And that's what I really appreciate from you, is it's always community-minded up front first. To my other fellow commissioners, very much understand that we got to continuously evolve. Our cities grow, our cities are organic, so we've got to always go back and look and change the stuff, but it's required in order to make sure that we stay at the forefront with best practices for transport for our families and our community. One piece I'll add to your vision that I'd hope that you'd add is building more on opportunities for greater and better communication to build our ridership, making it as user-friendly as possible. As we build these transits, sometimes it gets somewhat confusing for riders to get out there and say what are the options that they have as they're out there. And so any opportunities to better communicate and inform our public about the great opportunities that they can have in RTC is going to be better for us. And so that's one thing I'd hope that we'd add to it. But overall, good job. It's very, very complicated, but I've always appreciated your foresight, your candidness, and just willingness to be open to hear one's opinions and ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas, I can't believe it's already been 2 years. Wow, time has flown. I appreciate the presentation and showing us a number of the items that have been accomplished in concert with our incredible and professional staff. I think everybody understands that nothing happens in a vacuum or individually. And it takes a very solid and supportive team to make that all occur. I, too, have recognized that you stepped into a position in probably the most difficult of circumstances that ever could have been presented to you, and who predicted a pandemic. And I think you made it through that in the face of some, like I said, really difficult times. And the Virginia Street project is incredible. I would like to, in the future, get some feedback on how the buses are operating in that new corridor, just to see. I think that's important. The van pool, I think that speaks to a great success. My question about the van pool is if they have like if you're not familiar, it's a Life 360 type opportunity where you can see the driver behavior. And why do I say that? I had a personal experience driving out to my father's ranch out near Fernley, and a van pool went by me, probably clocking in at about 90. And I thought, ooh, okay, is there an opportunity where, is there a,
That's the speed limit.
well, it was for that individual as he cooked on by me. But my question is, for safety reasons, for everybody on board reasons, is there something that captures driver behavior in the van pools? I think that's important. That was just recent. That's why I brought that up. And in looking to the future, I think I have seen an improvement in the communications in the last 6 months. And you probably tie that to the pandemic, right? I mean, there's opportunities to sit face-to-face with people, to really hear, to listen, to get the candid feedback, where stuff gets lost in email, there's innuendo that's picked up. It's just not as helpful. And I know that you have advocated for, and we recently had well, they happen every month with the rider roundtables, but Mr. Maloney and I went to one a week and a half ago and I found that very beneficial. You were to be there. You had something unexpected that came up that you couldn't avoid, and it was very productive. I mean, there wasn't a huge turnout, but there was a number of the drivers that were there, and there was great feedback that came from that, which Mark, I know, took, and I think there's some changes that are occurring in a day or two that we'll hopefully address. And the irony of it, one of them was the difficulty with people getting abrasive because of having to wear the masks. And because of the confusion, most of society had no longer been required to wear the mask, and riders were getting aggressive with some of the drivers. And the very next day, they dropped the mask mandate. So we didn't have anything to do with that, but we appreciated that. And the feedback and that can be garnered from those meetings, I think, is really valuable. The listening tour, I think, is critical, whether it's listening to Dora and her group with regards to their real-life, everyday experiences, which are things in which I think we can deploy as we move forward with our transit options. The future, we have talked extensively at our strategic planning sessions about what the future of transit looks like in our region, and it is evolving at the speed of light. And I'm very excited. That's the exciting part for me, is how does technology get us, and the variety and diversity of riding options get us to the individualized transportation. What one rider may need and expect or have to have for their needs, it might be drastically different from somebody else's. And how do we customize that and use technology to drive that? I'm very excited about that and moving forward into that space. But the communication, just continuing with your staff, we have an incredible staff. But what staff needs to feel appreciated and that their voices are being heard, I think we have to be more aggressive in our face-to-face interactions with all of our people, whether they're our direct staff or our third-party contractor staff. I think there is great value in hearing from the mouths of those individuals their daily experiences, because data and facts on a sheet are one thing, but hearing from those out there grinding it out every day can be drastically different. And what's important to our employees and what is going to attract and retain them is really important as well. And that's, I would suggest a listening tour, which I know you've already initiated with some of the roundtables, and I would invite the other commissioners to just come and sit with some of the riders or drivers, excuse me, and hear what they have to say. I thought there was great value in that. Okay, with that, I think the 13 years ahead on the some of the advanced technologies for environmental issues with regards to our electric buses is huge. With the alternative fuels, that's huge. The grants, to Commissioner Lucy's point, I think we've done great. I think we can probably do even better now that the world is opening up again and we can get face-to-face with our congressional delegation. And let me see, I'm looking at my notes. And I think that's about it. I think the future is bright here. I think it's going to look drastically different than it does now. And I'm looking forward to that. So Commissioner Hartung, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just, and I had this, and it's for a later item, but I think it's an appropriate time to bring this up now. Mr. Thomas, I think that it would be good for us in your technology segment to look at a couple of different things. Let's look at the Flexrite app. And let's potentially look at somebody else's app around the nation that is working very well. And I don't know where that is. Maybe it's a small community, maybe it's a large community. But I've heard a couple of things from folks who live in my district that the Flexrite app is difficult to use, and so maybe we can just make it a little more user-friendly. And then on the other piece, on the technology side, do our Flexrite vehicles have AVL? And if they don't, should they? Automatic vehicle locators, where the app realizes where the vehicle is and potentially schedules a ride based on that AVL. Or maybe it has to go through a different type of a system. I don't know. But AVL, I mean, we've talked about on all of our emergency vehicles how important AVL is, and I think that that's a piece of technology that could be adopted in Flexrite if it's not already there. It is there. Okay. Does the app recognize where the vehicle is?
Yes.
It does. Okay. All right. My bad.
You mean like on a Postmates, like food delivery app where you can watch the car? Is
Yeah.
that what you were? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know what you were.
Almost like Uber.
Got it.
Yeah, well, just like the Uber app to see exactly where it is in the system. Okay, and then one last thing that I forgot to mention, something that I'd like to look at. We have a growing number of people who work out at the Tri-Center. Is there any possibility, because we're not going to get I-80 widened through the canyon easily. I mean, that's an extremely expensive endeavor, and if it were out in the middle of you know, to Commissioner Lucy's point, if we were in, you know, Texas, big flat areas, it'd be easy to widen I-80, but through the canyon, there's a lot of challenges. So if we spent enough time, and I'm just not sure if we have, looking at a rail option to work with Amtrak to move people out to the Tri-Center. And I know that UP it's been difficult to have that conversation with them, but again, maybe it's time to try to figure out how we can get people out there via rail, and even if necessary, you know, work with our neighboring partner to build a rail system that is dedicated, because I think that's ultimately going to be cheaper. So those are just a couple other things that I had forgot to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Hartung made me think of a few others, and to Commissioner Lucy's comments about the frustrations on Mount Rose. I know we've talked about this in the past at other meetings where when we look at some of the roads that are NDOT roads, and we have been frustrated at the speed or lack of improvements in them, safety improvements, whether it's McCarran, Mount Rose, or the Pyramid Highway. What are we doing to more aggressively make those safety and capacity improvements to meet the needs of our growing community and keep them safe in the absence of NDOT doing that? Because, I mean, North McCarran, I've been advocating for some improvements on it for 10 years, and I keep getting study after study, and here we are 10 years later. So at some point, we have to just acknowledge some things and try to move forward as best we can for our community in the absence of others doing it. And the Flexrite route in Verdi, I would like to learn a little bit more about if it's the Flexroute area that may be impacting the lower ridership? I mean, Sparks just blew it out of the water. I mean, that's incredible. And I'm just wondering if we could have a refresh on where the Verdi area is, and maybe it's the area that the Flexrite is running in that might need some tweaking, or maybe not. I mean, maybe we're just not seeing the interest or the demand out there, which is good data as well. I mean, I think that's what we want. And then, again, I know this will be coming up in the future, our kind of shift in believing that every road will be all things to all modes of transportation, meaning every road being vehicle, bicycle, pedestrian, scooter, and every other mode, and be more realistic about which roads are capacity roads and are meant and expected and foreseen as being that, and which roads are more conducive and need to be more of the bicycle, scooter, pedestrian sort of road, and talk more aggressively about how we're moving in that direction instead of trying to be all things to all people and being good in all of them but not great in any of them. I think there's a way to probably get more strategic about that with the consultation of our regional partners and the different jurisdictions and see. I know we've talked about that as well. So, okay, I have sufficiently, we've probably moved off into the next agenda item a little bit. But, okay, at this point, maybe Angela, could you come up and maybe talk a little bit to us about what we see as, give us a refresher on what the different percentage increases have been 21, 22.
Hello, okay.
For staff, yeah, just give us a little snapshot.
Sure, well, good morning, Angela Wright, Director of Administrative Services. So we do not have next month we will be bringing our pay for performance pool to the board through the budget process. So I don't have that number right now. But last year, the average staff increase was 5%. The year before that, everybody got a 2.1% increase. It was during COVID. And so we kind of froze our normal pay for performance process.
Because you were worried if everything was going to tank and we'd have
yes.
to, okay. Okay, that's, any other statistical information you want to provide?
I mean, I think, I can let you know that probably the average staff increase, and I'm only projecting it because, again, it's not approved. We haven't gone through the process yet, but I would say at a minimum it will be 5%, but perhaps it may be a little bit higher. So I'm not sure.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't, do any other commissioners have any questions? Okay, we'll discuss. Oh,
I do.
Commissioner Hart.
I'm sorry. Does the executive director, like all other staff, get COLAs?
We do not get COLA. And no, Mr. Thomas does not receive any COLA.
And staff doesn't get COLA either?
It's part of the pay for performance pool.
Okay.
So it's built into the 5,
Yes.
4.5, 5,
Yes.
whatever,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and for the record, Mr. Thomas has not had any sort of pay adjustment in 2 years, correct? Am I correct on that? 2 cycles, okay. All right, opening up to the commission for any suggestions with regards to Mr. Thomas's performance salary. Okay.
I'd kind of like to know what Mr. Thomas thinks.
Hot seat.
Sorry. You get to discuss your own pay raise in a public place. That's a lot of fun, I know.
Well, actually, I do appreciate the opportunity because my view of leadership is that it's only as successful as people willing to follow the leader. So I am aware and want this to be looked at in the context of how all the employees are valued. So my expectation is that a compensation somewhat less than what the employees get is something that would reflect, the fact that you appreciate the successes, but also acknowledge that the employees really are the ones that, do the work and perform. So I guess from the standpoint of an ask, and putting that on the table, I would think, given that last year was 5%, at 4%, if you feel that I've been successful, would be a fair way to compensate me, but also recognize that, you know, a little less than the employees is where I would like to be. And then looking at this coming year, which is, well, and like Angela said, hasn't yet been determined, but is likely to be more than the 5% at 4.5% for '22.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Spear? Is this, since we're kind of straddling two different, we're kind of looking backwards, but we're also compensating, looking at what's before us for the next fiscal year? Can it be in one motion? Do we need to make two motions? Do we,
I think it's at your discretion. I think the idea was that there would be deliberation on 1 year and a decision on that year, and then deliberation on the second and a decision on that. But in terms of the motion itself, it could be either way.
okay.
So we're looking at, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we're looking at retroactive pay, is that what this is?
We're looking at, yes, what I heard was a sort of a retroactive for '21 of 4%, was kind of what I heard was what Mr. Thomas was below what staff was getting. And then a 4.5 looking at now going forward and what the anticipation of what staff will be getting, which is again below what staff would be getting. I'm not saying that that's what the vote will be. I'm just reiterating.
I'm just
the 2
trying to
years.
understand, I mean, we don't, in Washoe County, we don't typically look retroactively unless there's something that has to be made up in an agreement that was, you know, where it goes back to the last agreement. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Those are my questions.
Okay. All right. Anybody want to throw out a motion? Would you like me to throw out a motion? Everybody? I'm happy to. Okay, Commissioner Lucy.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
and I understand Director Thomas's willingness to take less than the employees through as a act of leadership and humility. However, as an organization, we select CEOs and directors to lead an organization and create culture and create a working environment. I believe that every employee, whether they're an executive director all the way down to entry level, are equal. And I believe that if he's willing to take less, I think that is a tremendous gesture, but I would believe that he should be at least granted equal to what the employees were received in 2020. And then also maybe offset that for the 2022 goals as well. So the 2021 would be the equal to what the salary increase was for the staff retroactively, and then going forward, establish that potentially for the bonus going forward, accept his potential request for 4.5.
Okay, so I think I hear what you're saying. So staff was in '21 was at 5. So we're looking at the retroactive of 5 and then the 4.5 for current. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that a motion?
That is in the form of a motion, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further deliberation? Madam Clerk or Legal Counsel, do you need any further clarification?
Madam Chair, I believe the motion is clear.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. All right, Madam Clerk.
We're on to item 5.2.
Okay,
The tops.
5.2. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Acknowledge receipt of an update on the transit optimization plan strategies and provide input and direction regarding the plan. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
One sec.
Okay, thank you, Denise. There we go. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Gee. I'm the Manager of Service Planning and Innovation for the RTC. And I'm here to give the commissioners an update on our TOPS project and introduce our consultant who will be leading us through the initial recommendations. As you remember, TOPS is our 5-year transit plan, and it's a holistic view of everything we do on the public transit side. It's our services, our routes, our technologies, our standards, our policies, everything related to public transit that we take a comprehensive look at every 5 years to develop recommendations moving into the future. With me today is our consultant, who is the lead on the project, and his name is Gary Hewitt, and he comes from a nationally recognized firm called TMD, Transportation Management Design. And so I would like to turn the presentation over to Gary to walk through the initial recommendations.
Thank you. Good morning. So I was here back last in December, and I just want to give a quick recap where we are in the project. So back in December, gave the board an overview of your existing system, including things like ridership, pre and post pandemic, and route by route. And then since then, we've been working on developing recommendations for the service, which you're going to be seeing in a couple minutes here. And really, this slide just goes through all the different kinds of data sources that we looked at. So we looked at existing ridership on the fixed route ride system, Access Flexrite, and just to be clear, we looked, route by route, day by day, trip by trip. Also, as another supplement to this, we used anonymized cell phone data to look at different travel patterns post-pandemic. So also in December, we had a survey that was out for public input, kind of a blue sky survey asking both riders and non-riders what they want to see in terms of the transit system. On the left here are the kind of most requested items, including, and these are pretty typical across the country. Customers want to see the bus run more often, have it be on time. The on-time comment may have to do with the labor shortages and issues that were happening around that time. And then also, earlier and later, and also faster. So those are all pretty typical requests that riders have. And then also, you had your workshop, and these are some on the right here. Some of the things that we heard from that, including looking at ridership, trends in travel, workforce changes, including how people are commuting post-pandemic. Also make sure that we look at kind of providing the right type of service for the right area, including things like vehicle size to match the demand. Also interest in expanding Flexrite in areas where it made sense. Also, technology improvements to go along with that, which we'll have a slide with some initial recommendations.
May I ask a question on that? Can you go back one slide? Straighten bus routes for faster travel times. Can you explain what that?
Sure.
Like literally?
Yeah. So
I wasn't sure what that terminology.
Bus routes can be circuitous. They can have lots of turns in them, so transit riders are looking for. Now, it's not always possible. They're looking for a more direct trip that would be more akin to a car. Straight down a corridor. Getting them from point A to point B fastest.
That's what I thought it meant, but I didn't want to assume something.
We mix that with the needs to hit certain destinations along the way and get closer. So there's a balance there that we look at.
Thank you.
So based on what we heard from the public and from the board, we had some kind of high-level priorities, and these were also from your workshop. So rethink the transportation system. One thing that we spent a lot of time on, and you'll hear about in the presentation, is increasing the efficiency of the existing service. And we did that through things like combining routes, 2 routes into one, 3 routes into one. Also looking at areas where ridership was low, could we do things like Flexride there? Also, we had the opportunity to increase the frequency on some key corridors. Also, we wanted to increase access, have it so more people have transit available both to populations, residents along the routes, and to jobs. Also, we have some recommendations for vulnerable users, seniors, disabled, to improve services. And then just kind of along with that, we had talked about looking at Flexrite expansion, also innovative partnerships with Uber and Lyft. So I'm going to go through the recommendations in the next couple slides, and those are also attached to your board report. But just these are some high-level notes. So we had changes to over 80% of the local routes. So most routes do have recommendations. And we have on the bottom here, it says no recommendations for Lincoln Rapid and Virginia Rapid. That's really, we support what's happening now, which is restoring those services back to their pre-pandemic frequencies, the support of the capital investment you made on there. We've also created a service to directly connect Sparks and Centennial Plaza to the Sparks industrial area. You'll see a redesign of the routes in the western part of the service area, as well as connecting to a new medical center in the southern part. So I'm going to go through these pretty quick. They're attached to your report, and some of these I'm going to kind of combine together. So first is routes 2 and 2S. There's a Route 2 runs between downtown and Centennial Plaza, and right now there's a short version of the route that runs more frequently. Based on looking at the demand on that route, we're recommending just to continue one version of the route highlighted in green on the slide between those two locations. And then as ridership grows back, we may need to add additional trips based on passenger loads. So this in the western part of the service area, and I'll explain this slide here, and then in future ones, we'll go through them a little more quickly. So we're recommending discontinuing Route 3, both clockwise and counterclockwise. These are one-way loops, which are typically difficult for customers to use. And we're planning to partially replace it with a revised Route 4 and extension of Route 11 out to this area. This would provide a one-seat ride from this area to Sparks. Right now, that would take three buses and 2 transfers to make the trip. So we think this is be really popular. And really, on Route 11, this extension would really create kind of the base for possibly extending that corridor further east and west in terms of the rapid service. Well, also alluded to earlier, we have a recommendation here on the slide. The kind of the gray area is existing Somerset Verdi Flexrite zone. We're recommending extending it further east, almost to Virginia, to cover some of the areas that we are recommending for elimination. The Kings Row area is shown on this slide here. We think that will help the productivity of that Flexrite service. So I kind of talked about this. So Route 4, we're kind of taking the best parts of routes 3CC, 3CL, and 4 north of the I-80 and combining into one route. This is kind of getting back to what I was talking about earlier, efficiency. So instead of having 2 routes going in this area, we're going to have one, and again, supplemented with Flexride and adding midday service on the weekends. Route 5, and this goes along with Route 15, we're essentially swapping the southern sections of the routes with each other. So this Route 5 would kind of take, let's see, I have the laser pointer here, but this is where Route 15 goes now. So it would connect the new Hug High School, which is going to be on Sullivan Lane, to Sun Valley, which is part of the attendance boundaries for that school. So be good for students wanting to go to high school. And then as you'll see, Route 15, we're recommending it to have a more direct routing between downtown and TMCC. Route 6, we're recommending eliminating this route and partially replacing it with a new Flexride zone shown in yellow here, and also a new Route 51, which we'll talk about in a little more detail. Route 9 on Kitsky, this is a route we're recommending to straighten out and connect it back to Meadowood Mall. And this will now create kind of a fast connection between Centennial Plaza and the Meadowood Mall and provide new service along Smith Ridge. And we're also proposing to increase the frequency of the service to every 30 minutes during the peak and midday periods. This is Route 11 we talked about earlier. This is just the view of the entire corridor. So we'll go all the way from McCarran on the east end through Centennial Plaza, through 4th Street, all the way out to the Walmart and the western part of the service area. So it creates new connections, shopping center at McCarran and 7th, also McCarran and Prater Way. And again, talked about earlier, this could kind of lay the groundwork for possible extension of rapid service along Prater and 4th. Route 12, we're recommending making a small change to the routing to serve the Renown Regional Medical Center, and this is because of that change to Route 9 earlier, which we're straightening out, so residents will still be able to get to the medical center by taking Route 12. Route 13, we're recommending changing the alignment into downtown off of 4th Street, since there's so much service along that corridor right now, and having it come in on Mill Street and then up into downtown. And also on this one, we recommend adding service on Sundays during the middle of the day, which it currently doesn't have. Route 14, this is a route on East Mill. We're recommending to extend it further east and north to connect to Centennial Plaza. So it's going to go through the Sparks Industrial Area, replaces part of Route 54 that we're recommending for elimination. And this would actually be at a higher frequency than that existing route. This is the kind of the other part of the Route 515 change. So Route 15 would be more direct to TMCC from downtown. We also recommend adding TMCC as a location to the North Valley's Flexrite zone. Route 16 in the Idlewild area, we're recommending eliminating this route because of low ridership, and this area would be served by that new Flexrite zone we talked about earlier. Route 19, recommending discontinuing this route for a couple reasons. One is that it's, in terms of your route spacing, it's pretty close to the existing Route 13 and also to the Virginia Street corridor. This is a route that's currently hasn't been operating since during the pandemic, but this would kind of officially discontinue the route if implemented. And then there's some changes in the Sparks area coming out of Centennial Plaza. This is one where we looked at combining a couple of routes, routes 21 and 26, into one route to get some efficiency. We're able to improve, by that we're also able to improve the frequency on the weekends to every 30 minutes. The route would kind of combine the best parts of Route 21 along Prater, but also serve the marina area and connect out to the hospital. And this is just the slide for the Route 26 change. And then I mentioned earlier, Route 54, recommending discontinuing this route and replacing it with pieces of other routes that we're recommending to extend or to create. This is a new route. This is pick up the bottom part of Route 6. This would connect the Greenfield area through Fire Creek Crossing to the Meadowood Mall. And this is route would operate every 30 minutes during the peak day and weekends and 60 minutes on the weekend. And then coming out of Meadowood Mall to the east, we have a new Route 52, which would pick up the southern section of the discontinued Route 54 and would connect to some new destinations, including the Veterans Affairs Office, the Sierra Medical Center. This route would also operate 30 minutes on the week, every 30 minutes on the weekend, and 60 minutes on the weekend, or on the weekdays, 30 minutes, 60 minutes on the weekends. These are just those three Flexrite zones. So the expanding Somerset Verdi to pick up the areas of the eliminated Route 3CC, 3CL. The Western Reno Flexrite, which would pick up parts of Route 6 that are eliminated and also Route 16. Also on this one, we're recommending that people could connect as a point of interest to 4th Street Station to create a one-seat ride from this Flexrite zone to the rest of the system. And then we're recommending a new Flexrite zone in the southern part of the service area, in the South Meadows, DeMonte Ranch area, which would connect to Route 56 and have additional points of interest at Walmart, Raley's, UNR, Redfield campus. And then as over time, if we get requests, we can look at extending it to other areas. The zone is shown in yellow on this map. So I talked about earlier some of the goals that we had. And this is kind of, if these were all kind of implemented together, So the number of bus trips would decrease by about 9%, and that's, that would be kind of 9% potentially less on the amount of buses and drivers and hours needed, but it's offset by those new Flexride zones. Also, it's important to note that by doing some of the efficiency we have, we're using less vehicles, less hours, but we're actually running the buses more throughout the day and covering more service area. So this is all coming from efficiency. So instead of a bus, let's say, sitting at one of the transit centers for 20 minutes, maybe it sits there for 10 minutes, or instead of 30 minutes, 15 minutes. So we're keeping the buses on the road a little bit more. We're also, as part of this, we'll be extending the Flexride area by about 43% in terms of square miles. And also in terms of the changes to adding those new Flexride areas and some of the changes to the fixed route service, the percentage of population and jobs that would be within a quarter mile of a fixed route or within a Flexride zone would increase by 10% across the region. And then the population and jobs that are near 30-minute peak weekday frequency, which is the higher frequency service, or a Flexride zone would increase by 40%. And that's really through things like eliminating 60-minute routes and increasing frequency on the remaining routes to 30 minutes. In addition to the fixed route recommendations, there's recommendations to expand the senior ride service, both for the taxi and the Uber and Lyft partnerships. We see this as a way to offset any possible impacts. So recommendations to change the hours of access, and also, as we mentioned earlier, at adding additional Flexride points of interest where it makes sense as part of the service plan. We talked about, the board was talking about technology earlier. So as part of this project, we had a subcontractor who works with trans agencies on their technology, and they kind of did a top to bottom review of the different offerings and different technology that the agency uses. And there's some high level recommendations that we have. One is for the agency to continue working towards one application, they call it mobility as a service, which would allow customers to do trip planning for things like the Flexride and fixed route, and also be able to potentially pay through that same application. Another recommendation is to publish information about the vehicle locations out to more providers so that you can kind of get it in other areas like Google Maps, Apple Maps, other applications. Also looking at, as kind of software contracts come up over the next 5 years, looking at ways to streamline software purchases, making sure that the systems work together, and really putting together a roadmap for the next 5 years. And that's something that you'll see when the full TOPS plan comes to the board in the future. So I'll turn it back over to Jim to go over the outreach.
Thanks, Gary. We are currently in the middle of our public outreach process right now. We do have a live survey that is accessible for passengers, and passengers who do fill it out receive a free 7-day pass through Token Transit. Right now, we're just short of about 200 surveys being filled out, and we have some additional events scheduled over the next few weeks, especially targeting senior citizens to make sure we get feedback from their perspective. We have had 2 pop-up events recently at 4th Street Station and at Centennial Plaza. Those are our 2 main transit centers. And at those pop-up events, the feedback has been generally very positive. Passengers appreciate the quicker travel time, the less need to transfer between buses. And so, once you walk them through the changes, they've been very supportive of what they've seen. Some of the suggestions we've heard so far, for example, at Centennial Plaza, we heard from a number of folks who want a deeper Flexrite access into Spanish Springs. And so that's something we will definitely be looking at and adding additional points of interest in the Spanish Springs area. But again, generally, feedback's been very positive. We're still receiving comments definitely over the next few weeks, and we'll report back to the board in terms of the overall results later this summer. In terms of our timing, the draft service recommendations are out now. The consultant is working on the remainder of the plan, including the service policies, fleshing out the technology recommendations, creating some customer service recommendations. Those are all expected to be finished sometime this summer, and we will bring this all back to you as a final project, perhaps at our July meeting, along with the initial set of route changes, which would be scheduled for September. And with that, Gary and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about the recommendations or the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a lot of information, a lot. Gary, could you come in and come to the podium and tell me a little bit about you? I know that you are a third-party contractor. Can you tell me about what your background is, what your business is, and yeah, just give me a little background on you and your company.
Sure. Transportation management design. We're based in Carlsbad, and we specialize in transit planning. So we work with trans agencies. We do a lot of projects like this. So relooking at entire transit systems, and trans agencies usually do that every 5 to 10 to 15 years. RTC seems to do it about every 5 years. They do a deep dive. So it's kind of like doing a more detailed look than you do on a regular basis at the full system to figure out where there's ways to do efficiency. Also looking at kind of where growth's happening in the region to see how you want to change systems. So our firm specializes in those kinds of planning, and we work around the country, large right now, working in Honolulu, redoing their system, LA Metro in Los Angeles, small systems. We're doing work up in Idaho for Kuna, the city of Kuna. So we have anywhere from very, very small 10 bus systems to 2,000 bus systems. My background is most recently, before going to consulting, I was the transit planning manager for the Orange County Transportation Authority in Orange County, and have experience with microtransit, fixed route services, planning, and operations.
So, no offense, please don't take offense to this. You're a transit data geek. Is that fair? You wear that like
more than I like to. Well, not only that is
wear it with pride. Wear it with pride. It's all
I came out here last night, and I've already ridden the bus twice. So that's another.
Okay.
So that's another
Good,
indication. Kind of a transit rat will go out and ride the system and try it out.
Well, good. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to understand a little bit more about you, your company, and the background that it has done clearly across the nation and big and small, and data-driven. Fair to say, data-driven.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Looking at ridership data, and you guys have really good data here. You got all your buses have passenger counters. You guys have a lot of systems, data collection to be able to come, and that's really great. A lot of systems we work with, we have to go in and do one-time surveys or those kinds of things. And we have extensive data here that we're able to kind of input it into our systems and run analysis on to see what recommendations we want to put together.
Okay, I appreciate that. Commissioners have any questions or comments at this time? Commissioner Hartung, then Commissioner Lucy.
Hey, Jim, I was just looking at a couple of things here, and there was some comments about on our Flex ride that this, and several people have said this, that the rides keep getting canceled. What would be the reason for that?
Normally, most of the cancellations we've seen from the passenger themselves, because.
Okay, let me read you this.
Okay.
All right. My rides keep getting canceled last minute without any explanation. I request a ride, it gets accepted, then I wait half an hour and it gets canceled within 5 minutes of when I'm supposed to get picked up. I request another ride, wait a half an hour, and it does it again 5 minutes before I'm supposed to get picked up.
Yeah, I'm not aware of why that would happen, but if you could email that comment to me.
These are just on the reviews of the app.
Okay. Yeah,
There's a couple of them that are similar. And here's another one that says, works most of the time unless multiple people request rides, then it cancel yours.
Yeah, I will look into the cancellations. We do, as part of the app, have the ability to have passengers rate their individual trips with either a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Okay.
Typically, that runs about 95% thumbs up.
Okay.
But let me look into the app reviews itself and see if we can figure out how we can tie that to the individual passenger for the cancellations.
Okay. Yeah, and I've got some questions for the manager. I'll save for later. But so this is all tied to AVL in the vehicle, not on the driver's phone or in a console that's tied to a location?
There's actually an iPad in the vehicle that the driver uses.
So
and
that's the AVL. It's not.
That is the
it's not
AVL.
true AVL.
What is true AVL? Because the iPad has a GPS.
Okay.
And the GPS information is fed not only
Does that iPad
to the
stay with the
passengers, but
vehicle?
also to the office.
Does that iPad stay with the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Lucy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Gee, my concerns obviously with the Flexrite routes for the South Meadows plan that would be on slide, where would be the South Meadows to Monty Ranch Flexrite, which is the new proposed Flexrite for the South Meadows area, covering portions of Route 56 and also portions of Route 52. Can you talk to me about ridership on Route 52 currently? Do you have those numbers with you or no?
I don't have them with me today.
In today's slide, and I kind of wanted to have a little bit more distinction of Route 52 and then also Route 56. I know the chairwoman fought diligently and has, and I've tried to help her as much as possible, but I know it's been more of a challenge in the north, especially in the northwest portion of Reno, about improvements to our bus stops. And I'm happy to see that those, and it's unfortunate that Mr. Stewart isn't here to discuss the kind of the progress of those improvements on those bus stops. But I did see at the corner of Technology and I believe Double R Boulevard, or Double Diamond, I should say, that those bus stops are currently under construction, and then we're utilizing temporaries. And my concerns still are that a lot of those bus stops, I know along Robb Drive and up through Somerset, and also in the industrial park down where a lot of the new businesses are going up, McKinsey Properties, a number of the different industrial buildings are being built and utilized by businesses. We still don't have a whole lot of direct access. And now with DMV being located in South Meadows, off of Double Diamond Parkway, close to South Meadows Parkway, I believe those need to be obviously prioritized. Those bus stops need to be prioritized and improved as soon as possible. My concerns are that those routes need to be identified and continued to be evaluated on an ongoing basis, because as that area continues to grow and facilitate companies such as the USDA, UPS Freight, the DMV being organizations, plus IGT and a number of industrial properties, gaming from Bally's to Gaming Technologies to Pacific Cheese, and a number of shipping companies, that we need to have more, even though where our bus stops are aligned, that the Flexrite be a little bit more expanded within those areas of that industrial area of Reno and Double Diamond area to adequately facilitate riders, because a number of riders that are either connecting at the Meadowood Mall terminal to get there, it's a significant amount of time to get to those areas. Some connections from 56 to 52 would be beneficial. Also, you see a number of individuals going down there. I know, and I wanted to thank Sierra Nevada Construction and Mr. Stewart for their continued attention to those bus stops, because as we've heard from many of our paratransit riders and individuals that utilize these types of services, that those stops need to be improved to ADA standards as soon as possible, sooner rather than later. So I'd like to see that, but I'd also like to see ridership numbers for those areas and the increase, because maybe currently those buildings are under construction but aren't being addressed, and how we can more efficiently move individuals to and from that Damani Ranch area. And as we've talked about earlier today in the meeting, with the development going on, I think we're behind the ball in regards to providing transit as the nexus for that development. We are bringing transportation to those areas behind where that building is happening for those businesses. Also, along Double R Boulevard, we have a number that would access the Professional Circle Drive, which is great. I'd like to see what those bus stops, when those bus stop improvements are coming, so that we can see that. And I know that doesn't really curtail into the usage, but I think the more that we have those accessible areas that have sidewalks, that have availability for crosswalks and safety, that's important not only for our drivers, but also for the general public utilizing the transit system. Those need to be improved. A lot of those jobs are necessary for individuals utilizing, because parking is not tremendously readily available within that area. And many of those individuals that are either you working within the warehouse or as transit or for drivers for those vehicles, they need to get there, be able to get into those vehicles and utilize those. So scheduling wise, a lot of those, I'd like to see those schedules maybe be a little earlier in the morning so that we can get individuals to and from their places of business prior to. And then as we continue to talk about the technology within those communities, and we're continuing to look at Flexrite. In my previous careers, I have great relationships with Ken Hawk, who is currently based out of San Francisco, who started IGO here in Northern Nevada that I worked for. He works with a company called Mogio that is to Commissioner Hartung's comments, they are an AVL real-time database company that works with Flexrite and some different solutions to provide a better solution for individuals to get access and communication with the ride so that they can see where the bus is or the transit is along their route and jump in. And then Mr. James Cox, who is the CEO of the routing company, I'd like to see those conversations continue to evolve. I think there is a partnership that can be built. The routing company has seen now within a very closed section with TTD in the basin benefit, but there's only a few routes that those individuals have to work upon. When you expand routes and areas on multiple arterials and connectors, how do we connect the riders to those? And I think there is direct benefit, and I've always seen it as utilizing the Flexride or the microtransit to get individuals to a predetermined transportation hub, not necessarily Meadowood Mall or some different hub spots, but for them to get to those major bus lines. Because the issue that I see in the conversations that I've had with riders is that the duration of changing buses, and it can be up to an hour at times that they have to get to a bus, to get to multiple changes and scheduling that is prohibitive. It makes their workday from an 8-hour workday to almost sometimes a 10 or an 11-hour workday when you include the transit times necessary for them to get to and from their jobs. And I'd like to see those be a little bit more identified, not only in the South Meadows, but I believe in Spanish Springs area along the industrial corridor. I believe also in areas of Sparks along Spice Island Drive. Those need to be truly identified. We're getting people to and from commercial areas, but not necessarily to their places of business, closer to their places of business. So how we utilize our current existing routes to better efficiently utilize our microtransit, our paratransit, and our ride system to facilitate a more efficient way of moving individuals in a shorter period of time versus a longer period of time. And so I would like to have conversations with you and Director Thomas offline to discuss some future options with that as we move forward. So I really would like to take looks at Route 52 and 56 ridership, and how we can improve through areas. I know we've conducted Assistant Director Cummings, when she was here with planning, and a number of individuals, how we've addressed that. But going forward, this is not a today's solution, but this is a 5 to 10 year solution. How do we continue to evolve those riders, and what are we looking at in conjunction with the new development that's going on in all three of those sections of our commercial and industrial centers, especially out in the North Valleys as well. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Commissioner Delgado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions are related to Route 13 and Route 19. I saw there's a little bit of I understand that you guys, a little bit of realignment on Route 13 on the north end, and discontinue of the entirety of, discontinue of Route 19. So my question on 13 is, it looks like you're just realigning the northern portion. In the center there, you're going north, I want to say it's Locust, and south on Kerman. On Route 19, you've taken out completely the north-south on Wells. Wells is a big part of the business sector in that area, in that community there, that in addition to a grocery store, in addition to other services and medical services, now individuals are going to have to go about 2 or 3 blocks. Not a big distance, but on Locust, there's no services at all. It's all residential. Is there a reason you couldn't include Wells corridor on north-south to versus the Locust? Does that make sense? So on 19 there, you have in front of you. Because between the two, you've completely taken out Wells. And Wells is a major business corridor in that community there, again, with services for that community. I just would not understand why you can maybe include Wells versus taking it completely out.
Very, very good question. Mark Maloney, Director of Public Transportation. And as we've looked through this and looked at the ridership, Route 19 runs every hour. And as you pointed out, a block to one side is a 13, which runs every 30 minutes. And a block and a half the other side is Virginia, which runs every 10 minutes. So no one has been riding on Wells because they take the quicker frequencies. So they've just, over decades, we basically built the ridership up around Wells, but not on Wells itself. So that's why it's kind of has fallen out. Nobody basically rides this route because of that. So what we want to do is increase, as you can see, the 13, it changed that bottom loop to come up and serve up higher by Social Security and such to meet where 19 had a destination that was utilized. So we've kind of combined it to based on what the ridership had been doing over the past.
So wouldn't adding Wells, what does adding Wells example to Route 13 do to? I'm trying to understand. You're going north and south either way.
It's,
so why,
it's a very
why
good
not
question. It's just the ridership is on, as you pointed out, Kerman, and it's on Virginia. It's not on Wells. So just over time, because the side had much better frequency,
but you'd still. Some of what I'm saying is on 13, you're not riding on Virginia, right?
No, the 1 and Rapid run on Virginia. So people take that, and if they're going anywhere on that side, they walk over from Wells. Or if they're looking to go onto the east side, they walk over to the Kerman stops. Because it's a very short walk and they get much better service. And it's just, it's not that Wells looks like a great street to serve, but the past world, how they set it was set up to fail basically, because you got this great service either side of Wells. So people say, oh, I'll walk a block and I can go every 10 minutes or I can go every 30 minutes. If I stay on Wells, I've got to wait an hour for that bus.
Okay. Maybe I'm just not getting across to you. We could talk offline. I was just, to me, looking at Route 13, I just don't, if you're already going north and south on Locust, why you wouldn't maybe add Wells to that route versus, I understand there's a route on Virginia, a route on Kerman, but that's going south on Kerman. But
yeah, we could go up Wells. It's just the people who are currently, because that's been going there for decades, and more riders use that than use Wells. So yeah, it could be switched over. Then we have to train everyone back over to Wells. But that is definitely something we can look at. These are all just recommendations in the plans. Each of these are going to be reevaluated based on what we hear here today, what we hear from the community, and then they're going to be broken up as service plans.
Yeah.
So basically, when we do a service change next January, we'll have a couple of these come forward to the board, do a public hearing, go back and talk to the individuals who use it, and give them a chance to input on just exactly what we've kind of narrowed it down to. So
Yeah,
I think that's a good suggestion.
I'd like some more info on that, especially as well as the business corridor is just changing so dramatically. But yeah, look to get some info back. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think if I was understanding Commissioner Delgado correctly, could you not put the one on Locust on Wells?
Right. It's just,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's just
Okay.
right now,
Yeah.
the ridership is on Locust.
Yeah, that's, I understand what he was getting at, and I think we were dancing around it, not maybe quite getting there.
From a route design perspective, the further that split is, the more confusing it is for riders. And so you try to, if you have a couplet like that, you try to have it be on the couplet, and you could, I would say either move the whole thing over to Wells, or keep it the way it is. But the fact of if you split it another block, you're now making people walk even further. So that might not be kind of splitting the baby on this may not be the best way to go, but something that we can look at. And then generally, your route spacing on a network basis, you want to keep the routes at spaced at least half a mile apart. Thinking about a quarter mile walking distance, and this Route 19 kind of stood out throughout the whole system as the kind of the one route that was really squished in between two existing routes. So that's why, as a consultant, we identified it, and as one for potential elimination.
Understood.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam
Commissioner
Chair, I'm sorry not to jump back in. Mr. McGee, can you go back to the Route 52, the proposed new Route 52?
And we're about to lose a commissioner, so we just got to cook along here as quick
Trying
as
to
we
move
can.
as quickly
Thank
as
you.
I can. On Route 52, you have it coming down Airway and then hitting, I believe it's. Let me pull my map back up. I apologize. Route 52 goes down Airway and then takes a left on Corporate going back towards the Reno VA Hospital. My recommendation would be that at Longley off of Airway that it goes right and comes down towards Nevada, the new Northern Nevada Medical Center campus along Innovation Drive, and maybe even push that further down towards Mastro and come back and pick it up at Double R and hang a left and come down Double R, and then take a right onto Reno Corporate Drive, which would include more of the industrial center that has been placed along Longley. It would hit Northern Nevada Medical Center, and also bring individuals closer towards Nevada Department of Wildlife, closer towards Longley Lane. There are a number of child care facilities within that area. So a right on Longley down to Maestro Drive, and then another left down Double R Boulevard. If that could be a suggestion of making that just a little deeper south to meet the needs of the new hospital on both sides, and it would allow for more easily accessible bus stops along those areas as well, with the creation of that new route as well. I'd like to see that go a little further south on Longley to Maestro and then back up Double R Boulevard, if we can take that into consideration as well.
We definitely will. And also backing up to your previous comments, as we look at the total network, we look at the seat time for passengers and their trip duration, and we obviously want to minimize that as best we can so our passengers get to where they want to go as quickly as they can. But for us as a transit system, our bread and butter are those work trips. And for a system our size, about 60% of the trips are to and from work.
Okay.
And so anything we can do to enhance those work trips, to make it easier for commuters to get from their home to their destination, we certainly will take a look at.
Yeah, and it's wonderful that the new Route 52 does address a number of individuals that live close to the the Meadowood Mall transit station, and also includes a number of the residential area within Mariloma off of McCarran. But I'd just like that to go a little deeper into that industrial area where some of those businesses would be included as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My questions are probably more to understand a few things. One is what the communication, you said that it'll be between now and all through the summer, and there won't be any ultimate decisions or deploying of any of this until September. I'd like to understand a little bit more what that means. And I guess at what point are ultimate decisions being made, and then at what point does the educational process begin for those that are going to have a change in their service, and they're going to have to learn, if they were doing a fixed bus route, they're going to have to learn a Flexrite system potentially, and how much lead time and education are we doing on that front? The second thing, there was a comment about the change to the access hours. Was that an expansion? Was it a permanent hour? You said there was a change. I wasn't sure if it was more or less.
First comment, the education process is actually started right now and started already with reaching out to passengers through our survey mechanisms. In terms of process, the board will have one decision point, which will be approval of the whole TOPS plan, which includes the recommendations above and beyond the service changes. And then under federal requirements, we have a public participation process, which includes a public hearing for individual route changes. And so, and those, could come for the September route change. That would likely be in July. If we do a January route change, that would likely be in October, November. But basically, every time we change routes, we have to come to you as the board to make sure that you review it and are understanding and supportive of the changes.
So when you say you're doing surveys, tell me what does that mean? If I'm a regular rider, how am I getting pinged that there's a survey of a potential change?
So if you are a regular rider, we have at our transit stations and on board the transit vehicles signage which say, take a survey. And that signage includes, I'm flipping here.
Yeah, I saw the QR.
There we go. That signage basically includes this QR code and website where passengers can use their smartphone and take the survey while they're on board the vehicle. Additionally, there are paper-based surveys because we know we have folks who don't have smartphones, but we obviously want to make sure we get their opinion. And so we have a paper-based mechanism also that they can turn surveys in at our customer service, again, at either 4th Street Station or Centennial Plaza, so we can get their feedback also. That survey process is already underway. Again, almost 200 as of this morning. Our previous survey, which was done late last year, had over 1,000 responses. So that in the transit world is really, really excellent. So we take those survey results, we map them, we quantify them, and look at the feedback, and then use that to help determine the recommendations moving forward.
Do we have texting capability with our riders to have them take the survey?
So we can put notices out through alerts, and we have done that with the survey. So passengers who have signed up for alerts, either on a route-by-route basis or a holistic system basis, did get an alert that there is a survey available to them.
Okay, so they got that. And then it said that you're going to expand the senior ride program, which is fantastic. I have received some feedback, and I know Mr. Thomas has and staff have had meetings with our Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and they have expressed that the taxi was preferable to the Uber and the Lyft just because of the unpredictable nature of sometimes you can't get someone to pick you up. There's just not drivers available. But to Dora's comment, understanding that oftentimes, even if you're not accessing the access, you may have a walker or some level of need in the taxi or the ride. How are we working out some of those things with our senior population in particular? I think that's important. So we went through the consultant information.
If I could very
Yes.
quickly just address the comment on access hours. We have a recommendation to reduce our access reservation hours to a consistent 8 to 5, 7 days a week. Right now, we have some extended hours in the morning for being able to call and reserve your access ride. By having a set schedule 7 days a week, we can adequately staff that schedule with reservationists, and we believe we will be reducing the hold times that people experience when they call access, which is a significant problem at certain times of the day.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up staffing. So thank you. That was clarity. I understood that part. But in the overall plan, assuming there were no changes, and I know there will be changes, there seemed to be a shift, and there was a percentage away from the fixed route bus demand, I guess for lack of a better term, and an increase for the flex ride demand. Assuming all things stay the same, how are we doing on drivers? In other words, where are we beginning now in anticipation of an expansion on the flex ride to ramp up? I know that we are getting much better on the fixed route. We have, as I understand, we have many more drivers than we did just a short few months ago. But I'm curious, is it ramping up on the flex ride side to meet this potential shift?
Yes, you asked a couple questions there. On
Yeah,
the staffing, you're right. Fixed route, we're going back next May 7th to full schedule. They've done a great job the last 6 months, ramping back up to full staffing, which is great. The board a few months ago approved a plan to help our paratransit contractor with a lot of financial things based on what's happened with COVID. They are working to implement that with partnership with the union. They're in negotiations now. We hope that goes successful, and that'll be the real push. And a lot of these changes have to coordinate, like Mr. Lucy was talking about with the new 52. There's also a new flex ride in that area. We have to buy vehicles, and we have to hire enough staff to be able to expand into those. So that'll be a package that might be like a year down the road as we wait for vehicles or as staffing ramps up. So these will be strategically timed based on we have enough staffing, we have the right equipment, we have the right software, and everything.
It's not all just going to drop at once.
No, this is a 5-year plan. So we'll be rolling it out, chopping it up. I'm sure a lot of these, there could be a lot of people that are very anxious, so we're going to work as quick as we can, and try to front load a lot of this in the 5 years, but it will be over a time span.
Yeah. And I think the educational piece is going to be just the critical component.
It is.
People are comfortable with what they know, and they come to expect it. And I think anytime there's change, you get some bristling. But I think I know we've experienced with some of the educational stuff we've done with the seniors. Once they understand the benefits of some alternate opportunities, and they get comfortable with the way in which to reserve that. They understand that that's actually a better option for their particular needs. But your initial reaction is one of change. Nobody loves change, for sure. So the educational piece can't be emphasized enough.
It takes time. And on the Washoe Senior Ride, that actually is the choice of the people coming in. So we actually have them fill out an application. We talk them through which is best for them. So about 98% are actually on the taxi side, and then the other 2% are on the Uber. So if you have needs for like a walker or help, the taxi used to run our nighttime paratransit. They have the training, they have that side of it. If you don't need that and you're an able-bodied and you like Uber because it's a little cheaper, a little bit quicker, better app to watch where your ride is and such, then we move them towards that. But we evaluate them before so they can go into which box.
Yeah. And then, of course, our staffing on the customer service side when all these changes begin to occur, because there will be lots of questions, I would imagine. And the last thing we want people to get is no answer on a phone. That would not be good. The last question I have is on the Healthy Transportation Services page, the Rethink Transportation System, you have increased services to vulnerable users. What does that mean to you? What's your definition of vulnerable user?
Maybe you flip why I answer that. To me, personally, I think that is making sure that as a transit system, we have no one left behind. That if they have the ability to get to work, to school, to healthcare, to wherever they need to go today, that whatever we do in our change in our process, we make sure that we protect those who need us the most.
Okay, all right. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hartung.
Yeah, so Jim, as we start to roll these changes out, I think it would be wise if we went to do a little outreach, the senior center right here on 9th Street. I hope you guys are maybe already doing that, and then the Sparks Senior Center over off of Richards Way.
We are doing outreach specifically for senior citizens. We do have a couple meetings scheduled the week after next. We will be doing senior center outreach.
Okay.
Because especially our mobility specialists, they are well-versed in going to those centers and talking to them about our services.
Are we spending any time teaching staff members, Washoe County, City of Sparks, the staff members at those senior centers, how to get seniors acquainted with the apps and how to use that stuff? In other words, so that they're not just sort of out on their own.
Yeah, we have talked with staff members, and for example, and we have developed, for example, with our Flexrite app, we have a video on YouTube that basically walks through how to use the app. So
it means you can understand how to get on YouTube.
But to answer your question,
but if
yes,
it's at the senior center,
they have come
staff
with
there
the
can
city
help
of
that.
Reno,
Okay.
and they've come to some senior facilities, affordable housing units and senior facilities to inform and educate on the usage of the different transportation options and how to
And we also
access
have, we have a financial commitment with the county. We actually pay them to help do some of the applications for the Washoe Senior Ride, and so they're very well trained, and we work hand in hand with them. We also are, as you mentioned, doing the outreach on the city, and we're also working with the city. We met with them, and they asked, what could they do to help to partner for the seniors, and we mentioned basically training. They had a program that went out. We said we'd offer our expertise. We'll come out, we'll load the apps on their phone, teach them how to do it, if we can partner with their training. So I think we've got some good opportunities coming up.
we combined an iPhone training
Yep.
with their app, so we
Okay.
did for seniors.
That's for the city, though. Washoe County Senior Center is kind of a different.
Yeah, we have a partnership. We pay, like I said, for the Washoe County on that, and hopefully we can get some more training on that. We've had a lot of success. When we first year of the Flex Ride, we had about 20% using the app. We now have 80% of the riders using the app. So it's great for us on the phone side for our reservations because people can do it. And it's a lot better for the person because they can see the vehicle coming to them and where they're at and how long it's going to be. So it's getting there, but it's a long process.
Okay. And the only reason I say this is because I don't have elderly parents any longer. The last one passed away in 21, but they did not have a smartphone.
Yep.
They
That's
had a
why we've
flip
always
phone.
made it available
Yeah.
with reservations live. They're good at calling us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. This just seems like, as this starts to roll out, that sort of having, almost having a town hall type facilitated meeting once the routes are determined, and then just have breakout sessions for individuals who may want to learn more, and we could do it via Zoom and YouTube and all of that as well, just to reach as many people as possible. I just think the education part is critically important. Okay, any other questions or comments on this item before we move on? All right, hearing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so you'll be back to us every month, I'm guessing, correct? With updates?
We'll be back soon. Not sure about next month because it depends how we're far on our public participation process.
It's not very long between now and September, so whatever we can get would be helpful. I just think it's important to keep us in the loop and the public at these meetings and others, so I appreciate that.
We will be back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are moving on. Madam Clerk, was there any public comment on that item?
No, there's not, but we do need a motion.
Oh, okay. May I get a motion? I have a motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item 6.1, Executive Director Report. Mr. Thomas.
Board members, I am very pleased and excited to announce two new members of our staff. Graham had the pleasure of doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Graham Dollarhide joins RTC as a senior technical planner. Graham has 10 years of experience in the transportation planning field. He's worked at the state, regional, and local government levels, and I think his breadth of experience is going to be very beneficial to us as an organization. So I'm excited to have him on board. And then also, Christian Schoenlaw joins the RTC as our new finance director. Christian, there he is, right up front. You'll be seeing his face a lot. He comes to us from the Nevada State Board of Pharmacy, where he served as the chief financial officer. He managed the staff and operations of the agency's financial functions, provided testimony before the legislature, board of examiners, and other government bodies and committees, and ensured compliance to state and federal statutes. He'll be working with Stephanie to ensure a smooth transition, and we will be, just giving you a heads up, celebrating Stephanie's 25 years at our May board meeting, when she chose her last meeting to be the presentation of the budget. So in a very Stephanie-esque way, she's going out with a bang. So,
Well, welcome to our two new folks as well. Welcome. So glad you're here.
in addition, I wanted to acknowledge some milestones, and there's quite a few, which I'm proud of. Ed Park, our senior technical transit planner, will have 25 years with RTC on May 5th. Mark Maloney, our director of public transportation, will achieve the 5-year milestone on May 5th. So next week, 5 years. Stephanie, as I just said, she'll be at 25 years on May 13th. And Karen Copeland, who's our procurement and contracts analyst, she'll be with us for 20 years on May 13th. And then lastly, Lon Harder, one of our IT analysts that makes sure we function well behind the scenes, will be with us for 15 years on May 29th. So I'm very proud to announce those and to have those team members at RTC. I'd also like to, talking about staff, acknowledge an important retirement. Many of you know and have worked with our senior technical transit planner, Tina Wu, over the years. Tina retired recently after 26 years with RTC. She's been instrumental in upgrading our passenger amenities, such as solar bus stops, transit technology projects, and was our lead grant writer for the transit department with successful, most recently with awards for hydrogen fuel cell and digital twin research project with the University of Nevada, Reno. We want to publicly thank her, and I'm sure on behalf of the board, for her many years of service and wish her well with her future endeavors. So staying on the staff theme, our very own Judy Tortelli was named the Engineer of the Year for 2022 by the Truckee Meadows branch of the American Society of Civil Engineers last week. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say we are extremely proud of you, Judy, and honored that she's a member of our team. Well deserved and well done, so congratulations. Also, the American Society of Civil Engineers event, the Virginia Street Project, received Project of the Year award. This landmark project in the heart of our city has made Virginia Street a safer, more inviting, and more transit-focused place for everyone from Midtown all the way to the University of Nevada, Reno. I'd like to congratulate our project manager, Jeff Wilbrecht, and his team, including NCE, CA Group, SNC, and Atkins, for a job well done. The entire community is benefiting from this great project. The RTC recently received an award from the Sun Valley Boulevard Multimodal Project at the Nevada chapter of the American Public Works Association 2022 Spring Conference on Transportation Projects between 5 and 10 million. The project includes roadway construction, new sidewalks, new bike lanes, improved bus stops, and increased safety. The project's been recognized as a much-needed and appreciated improvement in the Sun Valley community. This is a great achievement for the RTC. Congratulations to Maria Paz Fernandez and her team, including Jacobs, NCE, Washoe County Public Works, Q&D Construction, and to all of the RTC staff. With gas prices on the rise, the RTC continues to offer transportation solutions for our community. The RTC encourages people to visit our website, rtcwashoe.com, to check out different options for their commutes, including our ride, Flexrite, van pool, and car matching services. In addition to saving on fuel and reducing wear and tear on your personal vehicle, taking transit, van pooling, or carpooling are great ways to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality. May is Older Americans Month. As part of Older Americans Month, the Human Services Agency, the RTC, and KOLO Cares have come together to host this year's Stuff a Bus Drive-By Donation Drive. New, never-been-used donations will be accepted at the Sparks Target on Thursday, May 19, from 1 to 6 p.m. Donations will be stored at the Washoe County Senior Citizen Center to be given to seniors in need throughout the year. Needed items include hygiene products, toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorant, soap, shampoo, and conditioner, disposable razors and shaving cream, combs and brushes, sweatshirts, sweatpants, bus passes, gift cards, Uber Lyft gift cards, Uber Eats, DoorDash gift cards, jackets, cleaning supplies, coloring books, large print word search books, reading books, movie passes, blankets, slippers, socks, gloves, hats, shorts, T-shirts, shoes, coloring items, and crossword puzzles. And the last time I wanted to talk to, and it's actually probably appropriate as we transition into Darren's presentation, is that we have been working with NDOT and assisting them in turning in an infra grant request to the federal government for 395 North to extend that widening project from its current planned improvement from Golden Valley to Stead. This is about a $100 million project, and one that we feel, along with our partners NDOT, is a great opportunity for us to use some of the capital funding that's out there, maybe one time, maybe going forward, to better our community. And as part of that, what we're doing is we're actually providing the lead staff to collect the information. We've also hired a consultant to prepare the application. It was a relatively short time frame and turnaround, but very proud of the fact that NDOT and our team are working together to get that application turned in. So that concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions or comments of Director Thomas? Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know we've talked about things to put on the CIP periodically, Bill. Do we have Eagle Canyon on a timeline yet? I'm getting more complaints of people using the side streets as a workaround. It's kind of almost a constant thing. In fact, I'm dealing with one right now where, because people can't get up Eagle Canyon in the morning or down, they filter into the neighborhoods and try to make their way out that way. And the problem is of course, then you end up with a lot of excess traffic on very, very, very narrow roads. If you look at those, the roads that are on the south side of Eagle Canyon, Veronica, and et cetera, they're very narrow, and they're experiencing a lot of overflow traffic because of Eagle Canyon.
We do have, short answer is we do have a planning effort in the budget, but it may not be spot on to what you're saying. So I will get back with you if I can to make sure we're honed in to exactly what the issue is and how we need to be addressing it.
And I'd also like to hear about what we're doing in Sun Valley on 7th Street that goes over the top to Golden Valley. We had another accident there not too long ago, and I mean there's a lot of growth going on up that canyon, and at some point we're gonna have to address that road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay. At this time, we're moving on to the federal report. You're up again.
I'll be really brief on this. The federal report is included in the packet. There are funding programs that are coming out as recently as this past week that we are looking at. As part of the infrastructure bill, there were some new programs created with funding set aside for them, and we're starting to get the agency's information on what these programs are. So we will be evaluating them and returning to you if there's a point where which we think we will either apply for a grant or there's some opportunity.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the NDOT report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to start with a couple of comments before my actual second slide. NDOT has many goals and objectives for the statewide network of over 13,000 lane miles of roads for which we are responsible. Of all these goals and objectives, there are none that we take more seriously than safety. Last year, 382 people lost their lives on roads statewide. There's nothing we take more seriously. In the 6 E's of traffic safety, which are engineering, enforcement, education, emergency response, equity, and everyone, the department plays a role but is not solely responsible. The department is doing everything that we can with the limited resources provided to us to improve traffic safety and reduce crashes and deaths statewide. Over the first quarter of 2022, we have seen an overall decrease of 14% in statewide traffic fatalities. Rates of fatalities went down in nearly every county of the state. The one notable exception to that was Clark County, which had a 23% increase in traffic fatalities from the same time last year. Impairment and speeding continued to claim the lives of travelers all over the state. We'll get into a bit more detail on Washoe County data, specifically on the next slide, where the rate of fatalities was down nearly 17%. But first, usually, at this point, we tell you about a specific crash or a specific incident on the roadway in our region. I'd like to shift a bit today and start focusing more on what the department is doing to save lives. People are dying on the roads. This is terrible. We are trying to stem that tide at NDOT and do what we can to keep the statewide trend we're seeing this month heading in that same direction. One thing we're working on to save lives is our safe system approach to creating the network. How can we build differently? Traditional road safety strives to modify human behavior and prevent all crashes. The safe system approach refocuses transportation system design and operation on anticipating human mistakes and lessening impact to reduce crash severity and save lives. It aims to eliminate fatal and serious injuries for all road users, and it does so through a holistic view of the road system that first anticipates human mistakes and second, keeps impact energy on the human body at tolerable levels. The safe system approach does not try to eliminate all crash types. It focuses on the fatal and serious injury crashes. As you have heard us say, in most cases, the fatal crashes we see typically involve speed or impairment or both. As I mentioned above, one of the E's of traffic safety is everyone. Everyone has a role in traffic safety. We'd like to continue to keep the board informed on fatal crashes in our region. As of March 31st, 5 individuals died on roads in Washoe County. That is nearly a 17% decrease in fatalities from the year prior. Motorcyclist fatalities are down from 2 to 0, and bicyclist fatalities remained at 0. Washoe County has seen an increase in pedestrian fatalities from 1 this time last year to 2 this year. Now an update on the advisory working group on long-term sustainable transportation funding. The group met together earlier this month on Tuesday, April 12th. All members were together in Reno, which you can see represented on the slide. As we enter the most challenging part of the study, settling on recommended transportation revenue options for the future, we hoped that, like last month, having everyone together for these discussions would make it easier for the group to deliberate and move forward. At this month's meeting, we further narrowed down the options from March, which included near-term, long-term, and flexible funding mechanisms. The mechanisms that are still being discussed and developed are the fuel tax, revenue indexing, the government services tax, the vehicle registration fees, and a mileage-based road user fee, also a parcel delivery fee. Some of what we're looking into with each of these funding mechanisms includes the financial, including collection costs, calculations of what these mechanisms raise at given rates, the impact by household, expected implementation costs, etc. This should help the group understand the size of the proposed funding package, what it might need to be, its impacts, and the trade-offs. The policy angle is performance against advisory working group guiding principles. as well as documenting the remaining issues that must be addressed for near-term adoption and for longer-term transition. Because no final decisions have been made to this point, there could still be other items brought back or included as a recommendation for further development. We hope to come back in June to solidify the conclusions and recommendations. The next meeting will be on June 14th in Las Vegas. The overall study remains on schedule. We're optimistic that an outline of recommendations for future transportation funding mechanisms can be reached by the conclusion of the June meeting, which would allow formal report drafting and refinements to happen over the summer and early fall for an on-time delivery to the legislature in 2022, later in 2022. A reminder that this is a recommendation report as requested by the legislature for their possible action in future sessions. Now for a few project updates, beginning with the SBX project. Union Pacific Railroad bridge girders have been set over 4th Street and bridge deck pours are complete, as you can see in this photo. The next phase of UPRR construction will take place later this year. Retaining and decorative walls between 2nd Street and the Truckee River are in process. Southbound I-580 paving continues. In May, drivers will see southbound I-580 traffic switched to the west side of the interstate as we continue to work on interstate improvements. We plan to call it the sneak peek, as drivers will be on the new pavement section while the middle interstate lanes are completed. While drivers won't see capacity improvements just yet, they will be driving on 6 new bridges and new concrete lanes. Prior to the traffic switch, we'll have a marathon construction weekend of intermittent ramp closures from the Spaghetti Bowl to Mill Street. We're in the process of finalizing details and coordinating with all stakeholders in advance. The eastbound I-80 to southbound 580 ramp remains reduced to 1 lane, as we've been reporting the last few months. Daytime lane restrictions on Mill and 2nd are ongoing, as well as continuing intermittent east to north and east to south ramp closures. Kitsky Lane also has ongoing overnight full closures with notice provided. We remind motorists that travel delays should be expected in the area and to consider alternate routes. I have a few notes on the construction cost of the project. The total overall construction cost is estimated to be $215 million. Of that, we've expended $156 million. $140 million of that is payments to the design build contractor, and the rest is right-of-way payments. The total estimated cost of the design build contract is $186 million.
Could we stop for a moment
Sure.
on the SBX? I just wanted to, first off, what a great shot. This is a great photo. Whoever took this is a great photo. I drive this area with great regularity. You can start to see how it's going to come together. And I just want to give, I mean, as much as we'll sit up here and express our concerns and frustrations with NDOT on a number of things, balancing that out with appreciation for the SBX project and seeing through, I was just unsure how you were ever going to shift those lanes in the mess that already was the Spaghetti Bowl to try to get people through. All I could envision was just nightmare situations, and you've done a really great job through the construction, so kudos to NDOT on that. And when did you say that we'll be able to shift to the smooth new pavement?
Sometime in May.
Okay, that's exciting because people can start to now feel and see. You can now, as you're going on 2nd Street and stuff, it's starting to come together. And I just wanted to give you kudos as much as bust your chops on things. Going to give you kudos as well. So thank you for this.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll forward those kudos to our team. Next, I'd like to give an update on our Mount Rose Corridor study, which has been discussed in recent meetings. The team developing the Mount Rose Corridor study has finalized its recommendations and prepared a draft report. The team consists of NDOT, the City of Reno, Washoe County, the RTC, the Nevada State Police, and the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, along with local stakeholders. Last year, we hosted 2 public meetings to gather stakeholder and public feedback on corridor needs. We used that feedback to develop vision concepts for the future of the highway. Community members can now provide their feedback on the plan before it is finalized. The completed corridor study will generate short, medium, and long-term projects that will improve safety and traffic movement. The projects will be included in and prioritized with our statewide needs by the One Nevada Transportation Plan. Some of these projects may be part of NDOT's program as soon as next year. The plan can be reviewed at dot.nv.gov/Mount Rose with no period in between. As mentioned last month, available funding for projects is a factor in that prioritization, whether it is federal, local, or other. We'd like to follow up on the discussion from last month raised by Chair Jardin's comments about McCarran Boulevard and Leadership Way. In addressing that, I'd start by sharing an update on the corridor as a whole. The McCarran Boulevard corridor study is currently underway by the RTC with NDOT support. The study will be critical in identifying and prioritizing different types of transportation needs based on technical analysis, stakeholder feedback, and community outreach. What we have on the slide here is a heat map of where crashes are happening on the corridor, with the highest density of crashes noted in orange. This slide I took from the online public meeting that the RTC has created for this study. The study will suggest improvements around the whole loop and may address priorities as well. I believe this study is the further analysis that was mentioned by the chair last month in regards to the intersection at Leadership Way. The idea is to make sure we have a consistent, appropriate design for the entire loop. Over and above prioritizing future projects, we also work to continually improve McCarran. We are wrapping up work on our $18.5 million pavement preservation project on the southwest side of the McCarran Loop, repaving and improving more than 6 miles from South Virginia to West 4th Street. In 2020, we also improved safety on Eastern McCarran Boulevard with decorative metal fencing near Victorian to reduce potentially dangerous pedestrian jaywalking, as well as improve turn lanes in the Glendale Avenue area. We all know how the North Valleys continues to grow, as the RTC current reconfiguration of the Lemon Drive interchange with 395 will bring enhanced traffic flow to the area. There is more coming. Beginning in 2023, we plan to start construction on Phase 1B of our North Valleys projects. This phase will widen southbound 395 to 3 lanes between McCarran and Golden Valley. It will reconstruct the northbound lanes. It will widen existing structures in both directions, and it will provide safety improvements along the full length. This project is anticipated to bid this coming December. The current engineer's estimate for this phase is $130 million. Phase 2, for now, pending Director Thomas's comment, Phase 2 is the widening of 395 between Golden Valley and Stead. This phase will consist of an additional southbound and northbound lane. I'd like to highlight critical planned improvements for Pyramid Highway. This summer, NDOT will begin construction of a traffic signal to enhance traffic flow and safety on Pyramid Highway at Egyptian Drive and Sunset Springs. The award amount is $2.1 million. There's currently no traffic signal at the intersection. The signal will provide dedicated, safer turns to and from Egyptian and Spanish Springs Lane, including turn lanes and median islands. It will also provide signalized crosswalks to enhance bicycle and pedestrian access across Pyramid Highway, including for school children traveling to nearby schools. We appreciate the opportunity to partner with RTC in the upcoming first phase of the Pyramid Connector project. The limits of this phase are Queen Way to Golden View Drive. Design will be complete this fall, and project construction is anticipated to begin in spring of 2023. The project will improve safety and mobility by widening approximately 1.5 miles of Pyramid Highway between Queen and Los Altos from 4 to 6 lanes. Additionally, just under 1 mile of existing 4-lane roadway from Los Altos to Golden View will also be reconstructed. Improvements also include installation of smart traffic signals and sidewalk, bicycle lanes, shared use path, screening and sound walls, as well as enhanced drainage infrastructure. The project is in partnership with NDOT, the RTC, and Federal Highway Administration in collaboration with Washoe County, the City of Sparks, and other regional stakeholders. The estimated cost for Phase 1 improvements is $54 million, and congratulations to the RTC for securing a $23 million federal build grant to support the construction. This project includes 2 segments of many improvements planned and prioritized by the RTC in the Pyramid Highway US 395 connection study and approved by this board. We will soon be launching a second season of a multi-year project to enhance State Routes 431 and 28 near Incline Village. Not only are we repaving sections of the highway, we will also install ITS conduit on State Route 28 from the California border past the casinos, as well as from Northwood-Southwood Boulevard intersection in Incline Village to near the parking at the East Shore Bike Path Trailhead. We will reconstruct roadway cross slopes for enhanced roadway alignment and drainage. We'll improve drainage and guardrail to enhance roadside safety and water quality. Bless you. We'll provide enhanced sidewalks, sidewalk ramps, and driveway accesses. We will reinforce an aging timber retaining wall on 28, approximately a half-mile north of Memorial Point Lookout, and we will make drainage improvements where Marlette Creek crosses under State Route 28. This is not a comprehensive list of the Northern Nevada projects we are delivering, but a significant portion. In every project I've described, there's an element of safety. NDOT is proud to bring the improvements to safety, travel reliability, and pavement condition in these projects, totaling more than $435 million to Northern Nevada. You've heard Director Swallow say this. We all work together to make our network safe and accessible for everyone. And we have an ever-growing population. We need to be thinking about the decisions we're making now in designing roads, city planning, and land use for safety, for improving our environment, and for preserving and maintaining what we have. For safety, we need to focus less on building more roads and focus more on solutions to get people out of their cars. As an added benefit to this approach, it helps promote other important goals, including reduced greenhouse gas emissions, increased community connection, and a sensitivity to the financial constraints of those who can't afford to own and operate a car. This concludes my report. I'm happy to receive any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very thorough report. Any commissioners have any questions or comments? Commissioner Hartung.
First, kudos. Mr. Tedford, cannot begin to tell you how happy I am to see that we're putting in a signalized intersection at Egyptian and Sunset Springs. That is a much-needed improvement. As you guys are very well aware, there's a elementary school, which is Alice Taylor, and because of proximity, the buses have to traverse Pyramid Highway, which is 5 lanes essentially, because there's a turn lane in the center. I mean, blessedly, we haven't seen, and I'm going to knock on wood, we haven't seen any issues of them getting across, so I really am thankful for that particular upgrade. I didn't see this on your slides. I saw the Queenway to Los Altos, but I didn't see all of this particular where it shows the 4-lane arterial, 2 through to both directions, 6-lane arterial, pyramid improvements. I didn't see that. Did I miss that?
I think it was on there.
Did I miss it?
I believe so. Let's see. It's small.
Right there.
Oh, it's there. I see it.
It's
Okay.
not any bigger on your slide than on the screen.
Right. Okay.
But
my
that
bad.
is, sorry
I don't
to
know where I
interrupt,
was.
but that is a screenshot out of the corridor plan that's on the RTC website.
Do we have any timing on some of that stuff? As an example, Calle de la Plata I'll call it Egyptian Sunset Springs. That there's desperately a need for 4 lanes because it's a 2-lane road once you get past Sunset Springs and Egyptian out all the way to Pyramid. Do we have any timing on any of this stuff?
I believe that all of these projects are in the RTP.
Okay. Okay.
McCarran, too?
McCarran,
Just
more specifically.
but any of the identified improvements on the McCarran?
As far as McCarran goes, and Director Thomas can correct me if I'm wrong, but much like Mount Rose, the study will identify projects to be prioritized.
Thank you.
Okay. And then my final comment, and I still continue to get, the biggest complaint is the removal of the advanced signal warning systems on Pyramid Highway. People don't know whether to slow down or speed up, and there's still just a lot of confusion, and that's that can be witnessed by the number of skid marks that you see at many of the intersections that weren't there prior to. But I am appreciative of the upgrades and the Queen to Los Altos. That will really be a huge project for many people in Spanish Springs, because you do see, I mean, that's as we all know, that's a choke point coming up the hill. So thankful for that improvement, and look forward to seeing more, and again, thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner Lucy.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just a couple of things. Mr. Tedford, if we could, from public comment, I know you had the Mount Rose Corridor study within your presentation this morning. If we could get some more information in regards to the Mount Rose accident that did occur at Thomas Creek and Mount Rose from your staff, that would be appreciated as soon as possible, so that we could evaluate that. Also, in regards to Nevada State Route 671, Washoe County has continued to discuss that section of road with you. Originally, that road was a state highway that went from Virginia Street up and around Lakeside and down through Holcomb Ranch to come back to Virginia Street. That has been a challenge piece of road for the county because it is a NDOT right-of-way. And its initial capacity, that was a 4-mile road, but it was truncated down when the city of Reno took over a portion of that road from Virginia Street to, I believe, Del Monte Lane. I'd like to continue those conversations with county staff and with NDOT in regards to acquiring that piece of roadway into the county assets so that we can improve that. That road is very tight. We continue to see multimodal traffic from bikes to walkers to commercial traffic and residential traffic on that, and is in dire need of improvement to be brought up to standards. Washoe County stays committed in trying to have NDOT abandon that road and acquire that piece of road so that we can bring that up to county standards. If you could please carry that back to staff. And in addition, we did meet with NDOT on State Route 28 in Crystal Bay. I know that project is underway between Bonanza and Crystal Bay at the state line, and then from the summit of Mount Rose Highway 431 down to the roundabout, and that paving is underway. However, the section that is very concerning to me with current development going on is the about mile and a half stretch from the post office in Crystal Bay to the state line. There needs to be significant improvements, not only to the sidewalks, but lighting within that project. I was informed by NDOT staff that the lighting was not in part of the improvements to that area and is in dire need of improvement. I would like for NDOT staff, we did speak with, I believe his name is the Regional Director, Michael Thies, is that correct?
That's correct.
Michael Thies and I met with county staff to discuss that, but I need to have that escalated up to the executive level with Mr. Mortensen or yourself or Mrs. Swallow, Director Swallow, to have that addressed as soon as possible as a subsequent or secondary project to include the ADA compliance and safety as it requires to lighting in that area, especially for winter times, and the stormwater drainage off of the mountainside down into that. Commissioner Hill has expressed great concerns about that. We've tried to have meetings, but from my conversations with Mr. Thies, that needs to be escalated to a higher level, whether that's at the NDOT board or with a director. And I'm happy to write a letter, a recommendation, or a proposal to NDOT for that, but I would like to see if I can have a preliminary conversation with yourself and Ms. Swallow to see how soon we can expedite that. And then the other discussion I'd like to have that I have had in regards to Mount Rose Corridor with Mr. Executive Director Thomas is the roundabouts, to find out where we are with that within the pipeline. And also the extension of Butch Cassidy, which is a county road, up around and bring that road, Butch Cassidy, into the intersection, the current intersection at Thomas Creek Road where the accident occurred. I think that is tremendously beneficial. We keep doing, NDOT continues to do improvements on Edmonton that does not seem to be adequately addressing the needs and safety of Mount Rose Highway for egress on and off the road for two schools that reside there, plus now commercial that is going into that area. So that extension is highly important to me, and I think that needs to be addressed within the Mount Rose Corridor study and addressed sooner rather than later. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Madam Chair, thank you. Commissioner Lucy, thank you for the comments and questions. I'll be brief, but I'll be happy to get you the information we have on that particular Mount Rose accident. On 671, we're happy to work with any of our local agencies and getting our roads in the right hands for the people who should be maintaining them. So that's a go. We'll get that going or accelerated if it isn't already going. We're happy to have that conversation with you on the Crystal Bay improvements. And lastly, the Butch Cassidy Way extension that you're describing is, I would say on behalf of NDOT, completely fine with us. The way our right-of-way works in that area, it runs along Mount Rose Highway, so really it would be the last 20 feet of the Butch Cassidy extension that affected and came into NDOT right-of-way, but we're happy to cooperate.
Madam Chair, thank you. And so in response to that, it would take some discussion in regards to not just the road construction for the 20 feet within to the right-of-way, but the actual intersection and how that would be. And once again, that's where the AWS is currently constructed. And so that would have to be addressed as well. Mm-hmm. And so before we spend more money on the improvements at Edmonton, I'd like to see what potentially could be done for that extension in regards to the report, in regards to the accident that occurred at that intersection. Not only just the report from DPS, but also any video or any images of that wreck would be welcome as well. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, moving on to final item, Commissioner announcements and updates. Anybody have any announcements or updates or suggestions for future agenda items? I think we kind of covered those in prior. Commissioner Lucy.
I have one comment, Madam Chair. One discussion that continues to come up with the gas tax and the challenges that we're seeing within the community. Obviously, our legal staff has provided us, and Chairman Hartung at the County Commission has addressed it. But we do need to continue to have these discussions, and it's unfortunate the Teamsters have left. But I do want to remind everybody that the gas tax that is being paid for at the pumps by every driver within Washoe County not only subsidizes new road construction, but it also subsidizes a significant amount of our mass transit within the community. So I would like to remind everybody that when individuals fill their gas tank, even though they may not be riding our transit system, but for those that are riding our transit system, every member of our society that is utilizing their own vehicle to gas their vehicle is, in a way, subsidizing mass transit within our community. We also have, with the state indexed fuel tax, the ability the state has, through their indexing, provides money to each county for improvements within our community. I'd like to continue to have those conversations with NDOT going forward on how we can better utilize that funding from the statewide fuel indexing to make those improvements within our community, whether those are roads or to our mass transit. We heard from Mr. Maloney in regards to acquisition of new assets to facilitate new routes, Flexrite buses, small vehicles for van pool. How can we better utilize that statewide index tax and make sure that the money that is being spent here in Washoe County be addressed within our region appropriately through staff? So I'd like staff to take a better look at that portion of that statewide fuel index tax in conjunction with our local our local county fuel indexing to better facilitate the project needs. And I also, in conversations with the tribes over the last couple of weeks, I would like to continue to move forward with the Lemon Valley Spanish Springs connector from Lemon Valley. Those improvements are underway at Lemon Valley, but the discussions to Eagle Valley Canyon are desperately needed. And currently, those projects keep getting pushed out in our RTP under the RTP 2050 to a 2031-2050. That needs to be further moved up in our RTP and prioritized. Those roads not only benefit the tribes, but benefit the residents of both North Valleys and Spanish Springs to adequately address the commute to and from the improvements that NDOT are making on I-580 in the north and to Pyramid Way to relieve some of the congestion and stress that we are seeing consistently within Lemon Valley and also consistently within on Pyramid Highway. So I would also I'd like to have that discussion, Director Thomas, in regards to how we can continue to move forward the planning and procurement of that property necessary to create that connector.
Thank you very much. Any further items? Commissioner Hartung.
Just a reminder, I look forward to seeing a more robust Flexride service deeper into Spanish Springs. Out, because we're getting a Winco. So that Winco is going to be a real draw. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think just kind of in closing that I think that this is exciting times for all of RTC. It's been rough the last few years with the pandemic and some of the issues that have occurred within our transit system, but it's also incredibly exciting, and we know it doesn't happen without all of our incredible staff. Final closing comments, kudos to our Director Thomas, a number of our staff members who made it through some tough times and took some really unprofessional and inappropriate and inaccurate shots and held and dealt with those very professionally. So I want to thank you for being the adults in the room and in the conversation and moving the organization forward. And I appreciate the board and everything that it contributes, along with all of our staff, and the future is bright for RTC. So thank you, everybody. May I get a motion to adjourn? Oh, wait. Denise's.
I just want to go back to number 8, public comment, that we do not have any.
Do we have any closing public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. May I get a motion to adjourn? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. None opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.